This work session, regular meeting of the Township Council is called to order. Madam Clerk, please read the Open Public Meeting Act.
In accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act of the State of New Jersey, adequate notice of the August 14, 2018 work session, regular meeting of the Franklin Township Council was provided as required by law.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by an invocation by Councilwoman Francois. You will pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and the republic for which it's one nation, under God, indivisible.
May those assembled here today enjoy the many offerings of our township. May we abide by the rules we have established, those of trust, fellowship, and ethics. And may we place service above self in our daily endeavors. May we always test ourselves in our efforts to be sure they are the truth, good for all concerned, a benefit to mankind, and provide peace. Amen.
Madam Master Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Chase, Councilwoman Francois,
Here.
Councilman Galtieri,
Here.
Mayor Kramer,
Here.
Councilman Onijaka, Councilman Prasad, Deputy Mayor Robinson, Councilman Vasanella,
Here.
Councilman Wright.
The next item is commendations and proclamations. Mayor Kelly, would you please join me at the podium with your entourage? Hello, there we go. Mr. Mayor, you are an old hand at this.
I didn't get to sign this one, but I will read it as if I did. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and everyone else here. Whereas blood cancers, a diverse group of diseases that include leukemia, lymphoma, and myeloma, occur when the normal processes of blood cell production break down, and whereas every 3 minutes someone is diagnosed with blood cancer, more than 201,870 new cases are expected this year in the United States, and an estimated 68,000 deaths will result from blood cancer this year. And whereas in the United States, more than 387,000 people are living with leukemia, nearly 866,000 are living with Hodgkin's or non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I will put myself in that, amongst that. An estimated 50 to 75,000 are living with myelodysplastic syndromes, and an estimated 118,000 are living with myeloma. Whereas the Leukemia Research Foundation and the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society are dedicated to finding cures to these diseases through research efforts and the support for those that suffer from them, and now therefore be it resolved that I, Philip Kramer, Mayor of the Township of Franklin, on behalf of the former Mayor, Christopher Kelly, the Township Council join with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society in designating the month of September 2016 Blood Cancer Awareness Month to enhance the understanding of blood-related cancers and to encourage participation in voluntary activities to support education programs and the funding of research to find a cure for them. And I just have one quick thing. I'd like to thank those on the council who were here when I was here 3 years ago when I was initially diagnosed. I've been in remission for 2 years now. I was in treatment for 1 year. Thankfully, with the support of the council, my family and friends, and the rest of the town, I'm thankfully in remission and happily will be there for the rest of my life. Long life. Thank you very much. So I'd like to introduce my friend Laura Gerlando from the Leukemia Lymphoma Society to say a couple of words and accept the proclamation on behalf of Mayor Kramer and former Mayor Kelly.
Thank you so much for recognizing the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society and September as Blood Cancer Awareness Month. As former Mayor Chris Kelly said, that every 3 minutes someone new is diagnosed with a blood cancer, and every 10 minutes someone passes away. Here in the state of New Jersey, our goal is to raise over $7 million to help find a cure for cancer. We provide support groups, financial aid, and fundraising programs so those patients, families, friends, caregivers can do something during this horrible time. On behalf of the entire organization, thank you so much. It is a true pleasure to fundraise and to make a difference for those that are touched by blood cancers. Once again, $7 million is what's raised directly in the state. Over 5,000 patients that are diagnosed here in this state have reached out to us. We provide over 1,700 financial aid support. We provide 32 support groups here in the state of New Jersey, and we are just finding a mission. So if you ever want to get involved, go to lls.org and put in your zip code, and we'll be able to connect you. And if you know anyone who has been touched by blood cancer, definitely go to the website because we provide so many services. And our mission is to connect with everyone that is diagnosed within 90 days so they can have the support that they need to go through this horrible disease. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
The next proclamation on the agenda is for the farmer's market. Mr. Fasanella, is there anyone here to receive this? Oh, come on up.
As many of you might know, Franklin has recently created a farmer's market, which is a major success. So here's a proclamation, talks a little bit about it, farming in general and the benefit. Whereas the Farmers Market Coalition created National Farmers Market Week to recognize the value that farmers markets bring to the communities economically and socially, and to provide a platform for farmers to successfully enter the marketplace. And whereas Franklin Township farmers and ranchers provide citizens with access to healthful, locally and regionally produced foods through farmers markets, which are expanding and evolving to accommodate the demand for a diverse array of agricultural products. Whereas farmers markets and other agricultural direct marketing outlets provide infrastructure to assist in the distribution of farm and value-added products, thereby contributing approximately $9 billion each year to the U.S. economy. Whereas farmers markets serve as a significant outlets by which small to medium, new and beginning, and veteran agricultural producers market agricultural products, generating revenue that supports the sustainability of family farms and the revitalization of rural communities nationwide. Whereas the Township Council of Franklin Township recognizes the importance of expanding agricultural marketing opportunities that assist and encourage the next generation of farmers and ranchers, generate farm income to help stimulate business development and job creation, build community connections through rural and urban linkages, provide accessibility to healthful food choices, and whereas in an effort to bring these principles, economic opportunities, and access to health, Franklin Township created a farmers market in 2017, which is still successfully operating every Saturday from June 2nd till September 22nd, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Franklin Township Municipal Complex Field, which is right out front here on the corner of DeMont and Amwell. Whereas this market has grown in the number of vendors and visitors and was recognized by the Healthier Somerset Coalition for its efforts in its opening year of 2017. Now, therefore, to further awareness of farmers markets' contributions to Franklin Township life, I, James Vasinell, on behalf of Philip Kramer, the Mayor of the Township of Franklin, Somerset County, New Jersey, hereby proclaims the week of August 5th to 11th, 2018, as Franklin Township Farmers Market Week, in conjunction with the observance of National Farmers Market Week. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Safi Callan. I am the Special Projects Manager for the Township of Franklin. On behalf of myself, Tara Kenyon, who is our Land Preservation and Management Consultant, the Farmers Market Committee, and of course the Farmers Market vendors, I'd like to thank the Township Council for recognizing us and recognizing the second week of August as Franklin Township Farmers Market Week in honor of National Farmers Market Week. I'd also like to thank you for recognizing the impact that farms and small businesses make on the local economy. If you're not familiar with the farmers market, I'm just going to give you a little information. As Councilman Vassanella said, we run on Saturdays. We started June 2nd and we run until September 15th at this municipal complex field, our last day being at the Franklin Day Festival on September 22nd. We run from 10 to 2 on every Saturday. We have about 12 vendors, which is a maybe 40% jump from last year. So we have Bond Nut Butters and Sweets, Caldo, Premium Hot Sauce, Elijah's Promise, Honey Cakes, European Sweets and Treats, Homemade Betty, Jams by Kim, Norris Hill Farm and Market, Pig Nut Farms, Snyder's Farms, Simply Sweets by Lauren, Walgas Tree Farm and Apiary, and last but not least, Wood and Wax. So we are certified as a Jersey Fresh Market. We are also certified by the USDA to accept SNAP and EBT benefits, and we provide free transportation down the Hamilton Street corridor. So if you have not been to the farmers market, I do not know why, because we pick you up and bring you here, and then we take you back. So I would implore all of you to please come out, support the farmers market, support our farmers, and support our Franklin. So thank you very much. I'm leaving flyers out there on the counter for you. Thank you.
We are now on for, open for public discussion. Do I have a motion to move for public discussion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, seeing no discussion on the item. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. We are now open for public discussion. 5 minutes apiece, may only come up once. Let me make it clear that we're having, later there will be discussion on marijuana, cannabis. You can discuss whatever you want during this portion of the meeting, anything to do with government. However, I would ask that you refrain if you wish to speak about cannabis until that portion of the meeting. You can come up and speak now about another subject or about anything you want to do with government and come up then. Those are two separate discussion items. So anyone wishing to speak, please come up, and we have a lot of people here, so if you're going to come up, you can form a line. You don't have to wait on me to call you. So whoever wishes to speak.
Good evening. Arnold Schmidt, 134 Hickory Road, Somerset. Regarding the proposed peace monument and the installation of statues and busts, I believe it would be appropriate for the creation of a committee that would include residents and council members, and subsequently a few town hall meetings where residents can discuss their preferences and or concerns about this. After, of course, allowing residents a few minutes to speak tonight about this controversial topic. Topic that apparently has been discussed for several years now, but also apparently mostly outside of the ears of the public domain. Only now is it actually officially a council agenda item. So it's not like there is a firm timetable for this project or that there is currently a public safety concern requiring that a decision be made immediately that would prohibit us from first having substantial public discourse, which I believe is needed. There are many issues of concern about this, including but not limited to who decides what statues, if any, are to be displayed. Where will they be displayed? Is it appropriate for religious or other depictions to be displayed on public property? If one group or person is honored, why shouldn't another group or person be honored? That could lead to some very contentious discussion. What will the legal liabilities to the township be regarding this and other issues not yet addressed here in public? Who will pay the maintenance and proposed lighting costs for these monuments? And maybe most importantly, since it appears that some of these statues have already been ordered and maybe even already constructed, it seems like decisions were made prematurely for the implementation of this project without township approval and without appropriate public notification and discussion. How did that happen? I urge you all to hit the pause button so we can have a real, honest, and thoughtful discussion about this. Thank you. You don't want me talking about the marijuana issue now? I was going to give you like 30 seconds on that. You prefer later?
You can speak on anything having to do with government.
Well, since I'm here, I'll give you that because I think I've got a little time left. So my second point of discussion tonight is regarding the alternative marijuana treatment center resolution. And I appreciate your discussing this issue. Whether it's in reference to medical and or legalized adult marijuana, this proposed initiative to allow the operation of an alternative marijuana treatment center or centers in Franklin is a step in the right direction. In reference to current obvious social injustice issues, including the prosecution of our minority populations at a disproportionate rate attached to the ongoing harm and inequities of maintaining the illegal status of marijuana, is unacceptable. That said, yes, I support your resolution 18-301. And for your review, if you care to, I'll leave with Anne Marie copies of my one-page statement regarding the legalization of marijuana that I made in front of Assemblyman Danielson's April 14th Assembly Oversight, Reform, and Federal Relations Committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill Connell, 25 Spring Street. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to say something similar to Arnold Schmidt, just in my own special way. The first thing is in the last few months, I have been outspoken about the process, so seeing today's article in the Franklin Reporter was not a surprise to me. It's something, it was just evidence of something I understood instinctually. It proved that Mr. Prasad, you're our own Franklin Donald Trump. You just kind of run ahead, do what you want, and, great for somebody like me, not for a sitting councilman. The real question here is about the statues is why. And I've struggled with this because I was upset about the open space issue. That was resolved, and I spent the rest of the summer thinking about it. And I really cannot think of a good reason why we even want to go down this road. To Mr. Schmidt's point, you pick one, you got to pick another. There's somebody who's going to get insulted along the way. I think you're forcing Franklin to represent something it doesn't have to. It on a day-to-day basis, it does that. Okay, I said to somebody today, the people in this room, the people I see every day are my heroes and my idols. How people act and the people, people I disagree with, people in this room, there's people I disagree with, doesn't mean there's not something great that I can take from them. And that's what I look for. I don't need a statue personally, so I don't understand the issue in the first place. But the main issue is you're forcing Franklin to own something that it doesn't have to. And I don't know why this can't be done on private land and just leave the town completely out of it. Thank you.
I'm Carol Keene, 4291 Route 27. I'm here to represent the Franklin Township Task Force against the proposed compressor station 206 and the Northeast Supply Enhancement Project. Linda Powell usually gives you these updates, but I'm a little taller than her, and she couldn't come tonight, so you know it's a different person. Task Force would like to thank those who responded to our request to ask the NJ Department of Environmental Protection to hold public fact-finding hearings regarding the water permits Williams Transco has applied for the proposed compressor station and for the additional pipeline under Raritan Bay. We had approximately 1,800 people sending in this request. And those are the ones that we know of. There are people that sent in requests on an individual basis, so independently. So it could be as many as 2,000. And we'll let you know when we hear from the NJDEP about that hearing. The task force continues to work closely with a coalition of organizations from New Jersey and New York who are working to stop the NESE project. We recently attended an NJDEP hearing in West Caldwell to support the citizens there who are opposed to the expansion of an already existing Williams Transco compressor station at Roseland. Expansions like these are common occurrences, and one that we might likely face if the proposed CS 206 is built here. On the New Jersey legislative front, Senator Bateman has agreed to sponsor a resolution in the Senate opposing the compressor station and the NESE project, similar to the one Assembly Danielson has in the Assembly, and that is AR 164. Finally, we're encouraging people to continue sending comments to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission with copies to the New Jersey DEP, pointing out the inadequacy of FERC's draft environmental impact statement and asking that a new DEIS be issued due to the thousands of pages of supplemental information Williams Transco issued after the DEIS was published. And we're always looking for experts to help us read some of these thousands of pages, people that have expertise in these areas. Further information and instructions for submitting to FERC can be found on our website, which is scrap-nese.org, scrap-nese.org. And then I would just like to change hats and make some comments as a Franklin resident. This is not from the task force, it's for me personally. I would like to speak in support of the peace memorial proposed by Councilman Prasad. It would send a strong and lasting message of our commitment to peace, nonviolence, human rights, compassion, and respect for all. Thank you.
Good evening. Robert Mettler, 2303 Amwell Road, East Millstown, New Jersey. I'm here regarding an article that appeared in the Courier News about a month ago that Loretta Weinberg, who is in the state legislature from Bergen County, has proposed that we be able to register for voting online. Now, my problem with that is this. I do believe the Russians did try to mess with our election. And until such a time as we can be absolutely sure that tampering with these computers is not possible, I would just as soon that it be done by mail or in person. I know this is old-fashioned, but I regret some of the changes that have been made, where you mail in your vote whether you have an excuse or not, only because there is a civic aspect, or there was, to voting, where you went someplace and you met your fellow citizens, and it was done as a body politic. And that's something we are losing. We are heading in the direction where we will all eventually be voting in the isolation of our own kitchen, and that is a sad thing. And just so there's no mistake, there was a time when impediments were set for voting, and that was a very awful situation. And people in my lifetime died to end that practice, and they were the heroes of my youth. So I'm not saying that we should go to any system that makes it really difficult to vote. But what we have now, it is not really difficult to register, and it is not really difficult to vote. And those who don't make the effort, well, shame on you. And I guess that's all I have. Thank you.
Evening, I'm Bob Stone, 5112 Chesterwood Way in Somerset. Just a very brief remark with regard to the Peace Monument project. Back in 1999, I went to a wedding in India, in New Delhi, a college friend of my daughter's. While there were about 6 20-something guys who worked on Wall Street. It was November. They got word of their annual bonuses. These guys were making 6 figures a year. They were still in their 20s. Their bonuses were 7 figures. None of them had ever heard of Mahatma Gandhi. I think that's a lapse in education. We have an opportunity here to make a statement, to call attention to the greatness of this particular man. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, your council members, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm very privileged to stand before you this evening as a citizen of this great nation. I arrived here in 1991 as an immigrant from Sierra Leone, and I've gained a lot from this mosaic land. Currently, I'm the senior pastor of Bethel United African Church on Welch's Lane, and also owner of a vocational institute right in Franklin Township. I have attended several functions, spoke at several events on this chamber, but today it is a historical event that will go down in the annals of this body. It is impossible to begin this admonition. I call it so because as a pastor, my responsibility is to preach the gospel without expressing my deep appreciation to the committee set in place to remember these 4 distinguished people who over the years preached injustice and equality. Occasionally in life, there are those moments of untolerable fulfillment which cannot be completely explained by those symbols called words. Their meaning can only be articulated by the audible language of the heart. Such is the moment I am expressing fervently today. I experience this high and joyous moment, not for myself alone, but for those devotees like Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa and Gandhi of nonviolence, who have moved so courageously against the rampants of racial injustice and who in the process have acquired a new estimate of their own human right. I stand here today in support of erection of a statue of those 4 people. These 4 have many in common. They are united in the quiet conviction that it's better to suffer in dignity than to accept segregation and humiliation. These are the real heroes of the freedom struggle. They are the noble people for whom we are gathered here this evening. This evening, I would like to throw in words that might be very convincing and meaning to the reason why a statue should be erected in memories of these 4 people who have played a very pivotal role in advocating equality and social justice of the past. Nobel Prize winners in their quest for racial injustice, I like to use this lofty and historic platform to discuss what appears to be the most pressing problems confronting humankind today. The struggle to eliminate, furthermore, another civil that plagues the modern world is that of poverty, which I will not go in depth because of the nature of this meeting. Nelson Mandela is basically the Gandhi of Africa. He was at the forefront of the South African people's fight for independence and racial equality, and was the first South African president to be elected democratically. Nelson Mandela launched a series of nonviolent acts of massive resistance. Nelson set out to correct the injustice of apartheid by uniting the mistreated and challenging the authority of the National Party through means of legal action and protest. As president, he created a new constitution that gave blacks equal rights and sought injustice for the abused. By expanding economic, education, healthcare, and land reform, Nelson rescued the South African people from poverty, disease, and civil war. The historic road of Mahatma Gandhi in freedom struggled like other great men in history. Gandhi took his time to grow in history. Gandhi took his time and to develop these techniques to ensure that his actions made an impact. His faith in different religions was commendable also. He listened to the teachings of Christianity. With the same belief and faith, he read the Hindu scriptures also. Also, Mother Teresa was an incentive to reflect on her missionary method. Ongoing reflection will keep her memory alive, and we can draw inspiration from her noble soul. In this context of the mission in India and contemporary experience, the method spearheaded by Mother Teresa and extraordinary success seem to hold great promises for the future of the nation of the mission of India. I stand here in great appreciation of the council and all its leaders to please erect something that they call statute for all four of these people. In conclusion, I will quote scriptures. In Romans 3, verse 1 says, there's no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. Truly, in the city of Franklin Township, they were gathered together against our holy servant Jesus, whom you have anointed, both Herod and Pontius, as is written in Acts 4, 27, 28. Thank you very much, and may God bless this nation.
Good evening, Alex Corazzi, 14 Margaret Drive. Dear Mr. Mayor, last March, when Peace and Nonviolence Memorial was discussed during the council meeting, there was a concern about the cost to taxpayers. Subsequently, an ad hoc committee was formed, who in turn asked its Citizens Advisory Committee to help them with two items. The first was to ensure that the costing of the building of the memorial is covered by private donors and not taxpayers. The second item was to ensure all legal issues were addressed to the satisfaction of our township attorney. Last Friday, the advisory committee met with ad hoc committee. At the end of our meeting, we issued a statement that Councilmember Selena will share with the council. If and when the council approves the location and the conceptual plan, we will require a detailed design and cost estimate to decide if additional fund is needed beyond the fund already raised. As for the legal issues, our understanding is that they have been addressed, but we leave it up to our attorney to comment on them. I wish to thank the advisory committee, who are Mr. Gary Rosenthal, Chairman of the Human Relations Commission, Mr. Fadi Mansouri, a resident and UN Human Commissioner, Mr. Randy Jones, Chairman of the Open Space Committee, Mr. Muhammad Jola, representative from the West African Committee, and Mr. Godwin Shishadri, a community member, and myself as the President of Interfaith Council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Respected Mayor, Council, and all the members here. I'm here. My name is Kunal Lakhia. I live at 8 Supra Court, just off of 27. It says Princeton, but it's actually Franklin. Figure that, but anyways. I'm here in support of the Peace Memorial. I believe more than ever, today is the time that we need to have a message of peace across the country. Fundamentally, you read all over the place that we are being divided on so many different lines, and the voices that were never heard before are now at front and center. All the statues of the great four people who are going to be there, each one of them have really stood up in their life and fought empires. Gandhi fought British Empire without one single bullet and got rid of them. Okay. Following in that footsteps, Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa, all of them followed with the message of peace. Martin Luther King went on record saying that Gandhi was a role model for him too. I don't know about the politics of this issue, but I don't believe any of these four people lived their life with any malintentions of hurting anyone. They believed in equality for all. And I'm not sure why we should be opposing something like that. If nothing else, maybe in future we can walk by that and tell our kids who they were, talk about them, and spread the message of love and peace. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm going to be very brief. My name is Richard F. Rogers. I live at 100 Barron Circle here in Somerset, Franklin Township.
Mr. Rogers, you need to address council.
Yes, sir. I'm here, I stand before you this evening to voice my support for the Peace and Nonviolence Memorial here in Franklin Township. I think, secondly, I want to congratulate the Mayor and Council for choosing four dedicated and outstanding lives from around the globe, from Mahatma Gandhi to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., to Nelson Mandela, to Mother Teresa. I think that as some of the comments that were made this evening, this country is certainly in need of changing hearts and minds, of nonviolence and peace. And I think some of the controversial issues that may be associated with this proposal, whether it be financial or legal, from what I'm told, it is not an issue. So at this point, I just wanted to voice my support for this resolution. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and the council members and ladies and gentlemen. My name is Naresh Sharma. I live at number 3 Branner Court in Somerset, and I'm a physician. I just want to point out a couple of things in support of Peace and Nonviolence Memorial. I grew up in a city, Ahmedabad, where Mahatma Gandhi started his campaign in India upon return from South Africa. 2 miles away from my birthplace is his ashram, which is a gigantic place on the bank of river. And as a child, I had a privilege of visiting that place and looking at 2,500 pictures from all over the globe, outlining his work, his achievements, his messages. And it had a tremendous impact in shaping my life as a child. I think if we look at here, 95% of us are on the sliding side of the sigmoid curve of our life. Essentially, in 25 to 30 years, none of us will be here. What are we going to leave for our young children? The biggest opportunity I see with this memorial park is a child, a young growing boy or a girl will be able to go, visit the place, put the finger on little button, listen to the videos, listen to the messages that otherwise they do not have the opportunity to do that. The world is moving in cell phones and technology, and young generation, in my opinion, is moving away from real teaching and learning that they can have. And I think that this park will have biggest impact on education of the young generation, which is the best value. Mother Teresa was the first one who sent a voluntary team from India to this country to treat and touch the patients with the AIDS in the early 80s when everybody was afraid of touching them. Leaving the political whatever aside, Mahatma Gandhi was the first one to touch a leper in a small village in East India and break the barrier and nursed him back to the health. Now these are the tremendous achievements. I think that should be recognized and displayed there for the benefit of our coming generations, if not anything. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Keith Gaddick, 163 Wilson Road. Tonight there's an ordinance number 4241-18 that is scheduled to be introduced. This matter is very important to me because it involves land that was owned by myself and part of my home residence property for the past 20 years. I believe each member of the council received my letter on this matter prior to this evening's meeting. If this ordinance moves forward, I will suffer irreparable damage, and I ask that the introduction of this ordinance be postponed to allow me the opportunity to obtain local legal counsel to represent me in this matter and hopefully work out a resolution that allows my family to retain the backyard that we have had the past 20 years. Thank you.
My name is Curtis Walker from 244 Hillcrest. Basically, I just recently found out about the memorial. I think it actually brings like a different kind of vibe to our community. As you know, we are all about peace. Everybody wants peace, and it was peacemakers. So I feel like if we had that memorial, it'll bring a different, set of example somehow around here more so thing. I think it's a good thing. So I'm actually here for the support of that. I don't know if everybody do agree, but I think it'd actually be good for our community. That's basically why I'm here.
Evening, Council. Ms. Gary Rosenthal, 4306 Avery Court. I'm not going to repeat all that was said this evening, but I've been in this township since 1969. Had a house, and now I'm in a retirement condo. And I have always concentrated on one area of the township, and that is diversity. And in the article that I read today in the local newspaper, I did not see that word diversity, which is so important to our township. As the head of the Human Relations Commission, I'm on the Martin Luther King Committee, I'm on the zoning board, and the one thing I've always concentrated on is diversity, and I have to support this statue because it concentrates on that one word that I've always concentrated in, a diversity. So that's all I have to say.
Good evening. Richard Seaman, 34 Rushigal. With regard to the Peace Memorial, I have really no opinion on the merits of putting a Peace Memorial up or where to put it or whatever else. But the reason I'm here is because as a professional civil engineer, I want to remind the council that you have a responsibility. You have a responsibility to protect the public trust. And in doing so, you cannot move forward on any kind of a public project without understanding, without budgeting, without design, without understanding of traffic impacts, pedestrian impacts, safety. All of those things are your responsibility. And I speak directly because, as you know, I'm on the Board of Education. I have similar concerns as you do. And I understand that when I'm entrusted to make choices, I have to make those choices with a clear understanding of the impact of those choices as best as possible. It appears to me that parts of this process are a few miles down the road beyond where they should be. I would urge the council to take a step back and make these choices in a logical order, starting with where would you like to put this? Where is the most appropriate place? Where is the safest place? Where's the place that won't impact traffic, won't impact pedestrians? Where's the place that won't provide for any kind of a public nuisance, light, noise, etc.? These are important issues, and these are your issues. And I would urge you to focus on them as opposed to what people are depicted or what they stood for. While those things are important, those are choices to be made further down the road after issues of public trust are handled. Thank you.
My name is Vasant Naik. I am from Edison, 2041 Oak Tree Road. I really appreciate what you guys are doing because this is the step which everyone in all the countries should be doing. Mahatma Gandhi was the one of the person who worked in South Africa for a client. Because of his color, they threw him from the train. He didn't fight. He said, okay, I will work with the non-violence. He came back to the country and then he fought without the arm, without the dress. He was wearing only small clothes. So he decided, okay, if anybody wants to kill me, you can kill me. But I support non-violence. So that's what Dr. King followed him. Each country has a different views and different situations. But everybody, whether Nelson Mandela ji or Mother Teresa ji, they all followed the Mahatma Gandhi. And you guys are doing such a great thing to, put this thing for the non-violence. And really we support from the New Jersey, from the entire Edison community is with you guys. And we really appreciate what you guys are doing. And I think it is going to present a very good step in front of all the people who are fighting for the ISIS and all those things. They will understand America stand for non-violence. We are American. We support non-violence. Only we go to those countries to save the people. That's my message from this. Thank you very much.
I'm Chandrakant Desai, resident of Franklin Park and a Somerset County Committee member. Honorable Mayor, Honorable Councilmen and women,
Your address.
and ladies and gentlemen. I take this opportunity.
Mr. Desai, you have to give us your address. Your address.
I'm hard of hearing, no?
1 Lindsay Court. 1 Lindsay Court. We got it.
Oh, 1 Lindsay Court, Franklin Park. Thank you. Yeah, I've started having problems.
I'm getting there too.
Sorry about it. I take this opportunity to be over here to support the proposition of the Franklin Township for the Peace and Non-Violence Monument that has been proposed since many years, and I trust that now the Franklin Township should see that it comes up at the earliest, where there are statues coming up of Dr. M.L. King, Mother Teresa, Mahatma Gandhi, and Nelson Mandela. They are all the great people who have an impact on the world peace and non-violence. And if that particular monument will come over here, then our society, our community will certainly have a shape where we won't have certain things which are happening right now, that schools are not safe, our boys and girls are not safe. Even on the streets sometimes, while walking on the streets also, we sometimes feel that we are not safe. That is what we see. Even in the convenience stores, things are happening. So under such circumstances, we want that there should be a kind of inspiration, there should be a kind of source from where we get the strength and we change our society. And from that point of view, I fully support this kind of monument which has been proposed. And even we look into the international politics also, there is terrorism, nuclear threats, and so many non-violent so many violent actions are being taken even at the international level. So I think this proposition should come up at the earliest, which has been supported by the council and the mayor. Thank you.
Here I am, Mayor. Chinese Tips, 25 Parkside. First, let me say, I thought everything was already clear. I thought you went through all this mess before, and you got all the questions you had about putting up the monuments was solved and done. As Mr. Karazi has said, everything was done. So what's all this about? Which one of you guys up here decided to carry this further? Who, the mayor? Are you guys scared? Each one of you guys got a vote. You know, you got your own vote. Yes, who was going to be against Mama Teresa? Martin Luther King, I'm here. Here I am down too. How can you dare to have, like the dude Connor there, that dude back there, you know, he whatever the guy say, he go along with it. You should be impressed that gentleman up there, your councilman, he put a 9/11 monument out there. The whole town is proud of the 9/11 monument. None of what you guys said, I almost cussed. You didn't say nothing about appraising, applauding him for what he did. He did it on his own. You guys didn't like that because it was him. Now you got a monument. Mother Teresa, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King. Who else? What did I miss? Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King's mentor. And you have the audacity The audacity, the mitigated gall. I think all you guys are Trump people. To have this thing to put some questions, even Seaman back there. You got to know the traffic. How's the traffic going to go? They did that already. All you got to do, I thought we were supposed to prove it tonight. I come here with the audience to prove it, to get done. I didn't care very hard, you know. I guess you guys want to hear the approval from everybody. Pass the thing, get the resolution done, and put up the monuments and cancel out the files so we can all be satisfied. And you can be proud of the diversity of Franklin Township, once and for all. Thank you.
Do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, you ask if anybody else wants to come forward? Oh, it looks like some.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ajay Patil, 22 Ventnor Drive, Edison, New Jersey. I'm the council president in Edison Township and also a taxpayer in Franklin Township. I really applaud the effort of this council and the mayor to think about this great initiative. And believe me or not, if this resolution gets passed, you will be seen as a leader in the right step in the right direction. And many, many towns will follow your footsteps. So you all should be proud of taking the step in the right direction. Most of the speakers said about all these leaders. I think all of them, whether it's Mahatma Gandhi or Dr. Martin Luther King or Nelson Mandela, they have spent their life for the humanitarian cause, and we are just asking their monument. What a big deal. This is nothing compared to what they have done for the world, for the humanity and for the peace, to maintain the one world. I'm not going to say one town or one country. They have done everything and anything in their capacity, spend their entire life to pass the message that battle can be won with peace. And that's what exactly everyone is looking for. If this doesn't get passed, I'll be shocked and surprised that this council and this mayor do not have the right intention, but I hope you will not disappoint me and pass this wholeheartedly, unanimously, and thank you and have a good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm Vijay Kotahachi from the New Jersey Buddhist Vihar here on Franklin. I want to support this initiative of Peace Memorial. I want to tell that the Buddhism is, we preach, the Buddha was nonviolence and compassion to all humanity. And Franklin Township is known for its diversity and tolerance over the years, and perhaps one of the towns of most diverse of any towns in New Jersey. So this would be, if this Peace Memorial with 4 outstanding individuals, statues, they are approved, you can be proud that Franklin again came to the forefront embodying the message of nonviolence and peace. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Eva Naj, 231 Burger Street here in Somerset. Mr. Mayor, Councilman, Councilwoman. Representing the Franklin Township, Dr. Martin Luther King Community Foundation. This was started 21 years ago. I, as one of the founders with the superintendent and police chief, our vision was to bring the community together, our diverse community, and celebrate and recognize the impact of Dr. Martin Luther King. And we've been doing this for 21 years. Our annual breakfast brings out between 400 to over 500 individuals. Many of you have been there. You've heard the speeches. Some of you have spoken at the breakfast. The message is always keeping Dr. King's dream alive, celebrating our unity, and bringing our community together, and being an example for our young people. It has come to my attention that the King family, Dr. King's family, has approved and given their blessings on having his statue erected here in Franklin because of the work of the Franklin Township Dr. Martin Luther King Foundation and the breakfasts and the work that we have done. And it's not just the foundation, but it's this community together in celebration and giving out scholarships to our young people, which over 150 young people. This year we gave out 12,000, last year 20,000. We've given out over 150,000 through your generous donations. This is a special honor that would be bestowed upon Franklin Township. My understanding is that the family is only approving for a handful of statues. Franklin Township is one of them. So I encourage you to reflect on this and what message are we giving to our children? Our children need examples, positive examples, to learn and to pass on. It's by examples that we lead. Thank you.
Honorable Mr. Mayor, Councilman and Councilwomen, I'm Om Sharma. I represent a large Indian community. I'm president of Isha Vedic Foundation. I am a scientist by training and Vedantin by my practice. Day-to-day life means character building. So I'm here in the support of the Peace Memorial on the behalf of large citizens of this area as well as Indian community. I would like to congratulate council, entire township, Councilman Mr. Rajiv Prasad, to take up this project of Peace Memorial, installing these statues. This is an expression, installing this project is an expression of the ideology for which these great souls, four of those, they stood for, and communities around the world, they follow as guidance for their character building. There is a great message of equality, peace, non-violence, love, tolerance, coexistence, and diversity. These, they all convey the message of truth, which is also means the reality, the existence, which is beyond any of religion, caste, color, creed, nationality. And existence is same in all beings. So this should not be viewed in a particular color or culture or caste or anything, but it is beyond that. For each and every one of us can derive inspiration. So with this, there a lot of other speakers have spoken the reason for that. It is my firm belief that erecting these statues will be an inspiration to the coming generations, generations after generation, to the not only to the Franklin Township, but probably in a larger context of the country. And I think I would urge again the township not to miss this opportunity and to be the leader in taking such projects of inspiration to the entire citizen. Thank you.
Hello all. Beverly Lawson, 2004 Amwell Road. My comment is basically, you're going to build the statues regardless. They're going to be put there. We all get that. But I guess my biggest issue right now is the transparency of it all. The fact that someone had to request the open public record, Franklin Reporter, and have that published in order to find out that this stuff was already started long before it was even discussed with open space or anyone else or this council. So it's like obvious you were just going to do it. So all I ask is that next time or future, have some transparency, because we all depend on you all to give us the right story in the right order and do what's right for the township, not just what's right for one particular individual, one particular section of the township. If we want diversity, I'm all for it, no problem. But you know what? You can also go out and volunteer and get the same type of diversity, do the same things that you all say Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa did. Where's that in this township? I don't really see it. But you're going to get a statue? How about let's get some volunteerism going? You got the food bank. People, they're always asking for volunteers. There's many different things, the animal shelter, many things in this township that people could honestly get together and work with, not just statues. So let's stop focusing on the statue. Be more transparent about what you're doing. We don't want to be that type of administration. But thank you for the Franklin Reporter for bringing this to everyone's attention, because I've been to these meetings. I've not seen this many people in here, and I don't know how long. So I can actually give them up for getting people out here, showing up for a meeting. Thank you.
Reverend Tina Numela, 134 Hickory Road, Somerset. With the regards with the statues, I'm sort of neutral. I'm not particularly fond of statues, but that's just a personal thing. I'm not particularly against having them in Franklin if all the details can be worked out and this is not going to be a cost on taxpayers, etc. But some of this, I've been listening to some of this talking and have talked to people, and I kind of concur with the previous speaker that let's not fool ourselves into thinking that by putting up statues we can somehow solve all the problems in this township. It's almost, I hope I'm not offending anybody, but what came to mind was that, well, this is how people talk about returning prayer to schools, as if that were somehow a solution to the school's problems. So if the statues can be worked out, fine, but that's not going to be a solution for our problems if people don't get involved. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Mayors, seeing no one else looking to come forward to speak, I'll motion to close the public portion of the meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Seeing no one else, seeing no discussion on council, all in favor of closing public discussion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Public discussion is closed. There will be public discussion later on the marijuana issue. Councilwoman Francois, did you
Mr. Mayor, given the fact that there are so many people here tonight, I'd like to make a motion to move up to change the agenda and to move up move the council discussion, council committee reports and comments after the council discussion item cannabis.
I second that motion.
We have motion and a second. Is the discussion on the motion? Hearing no discussion on the motion, all in favor of changing the agenda as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. So we are moving on now to council discussion item on cannabis. We're going to have a public discussion in a minute or two, which will be 2 minutes a speaker, and then council will have a council discussion. I thought, however, we are fortunate. Well, actually, before we get to that, I wanted the township attorney to draw the parameters of this discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I believe that what the council is being asked tonight is a product of recent regulations issued by the New Jersey Department of Health and the Governor's Office concerning medicinal marijuana. And as you know, a number of years back, New Jersey passed a law which allowed, in limited circumstances, I think at the time they allowed 6 licenses across the state for the growing and manufacture and distribution of marijuana for medicinal purposes. At the time, there was a very limited number of ailments that marijuana could be, or cannabis, or some extract from that could be used or prescribed for. Since that time, Governor Murphy has greatly expanded the number of things that can be prescribed for, and therefore has authorized the issuance of 6 new licenses. They are in 3 regions of the state. There are going to be 2 in central Jersey. And as part of an application process that was really announced about a month ago, but really formally released about 3 weeks ago, the state of New Jersey required applicants to include in their application some expression of support by the municipality in which they intended to locate the facility. So what we have been, and I don't want you to think that this is just limited to Franklin. I can tell you that across Central and South Jersey, where I represent municipalities, we have had literally dozens of requests by potential manufacturers and growers of cannabis requesting the support from various municipalities across the state. I don't know that we have any specific location in the township that's been identified, nor do I believe that there's a specific vendor that's been or applicant that's been identified. But the purpose of this discussion tonight is the proposed resolution, which is a resolution to support the location of such a facility in the township. And as you know, I drafted a resolution because after our discussion with council members and after our discussion with staff, the thought would be that any such facility would be limited to the M1 or the M2 zones in the township. Now, I'm going to leave you with one other note. You've probably read, we all have, this has been a very public topic, and that is the fact that the legislature is considering further amendments to the law concerning the issuance of licenses for the growing and distribution of medical marijuana. All that legislation is still pending in one form or another. Franklin has a unique seat at that table because there are Assemblyman Joe Danielson, who's here in the audience, is actually the chairman of the committee that many of those bills are in. That is separate and apart from the whole discussion about adult use, which is not something that has anything to do with the resolution that you have on before you today. Whatever that legislation should hold will be a completely different process, different than this process, and won't affect anything that you, won't be affected by anything you do here tonight. So once again, the resolution is non-binding. It's just an expression of the council of support. If there was actually a facility that was proposed or licensed in the township, there would be a requirement for the revision of a number of our ordinances. There would be requirements for approval by planning board and other departments. So that's where we are now. So it's really the consideration of a non-binding resolution expressing the council's support for the location of a facility somewhere in an M1 or M2 zone in the township.
Mr. Attorney, I know the answer to this question, but I'm asking for the benefit of the public. Would the vote tonight affect in any way people's ability to smoke or not smoke marijuana or use any marijuana-related products in the town?
No, currently in New Jersey, a doctor can prescribe cannabis for a whole range of ailments. If somebody has a prescription, it's no different than having any other prescription for any other drug.
By the way, since you mentioned that, this doctor is not licensed to prescribe marijuana, so yeah, don't ask.
No, by the way, nor is this doctor.
And but
or Dr. Chase. None of the 3 doctors.
But there is, I have no conflict of interest as far as that goes. and I'm not planning to get licensed for that. Do we want to, actually, I'm going to jump to one other thing, and then the manager might show the areas in the town, the M1 and M2 zones that would be affected. But as the attorney pointed out, we are fortunate enough to have in the town Assemblyman, I just promoted you, Assemblyman Danielson, who is heading up, or he can correct that exact phrasing, the state's process in passing these laws, or at least drawing up the legislation. I'm going to, in a moment, ask him to come up and speak before the public session so he can inform us of issues. I'm going to address not the elephant in the room, but maybe the Shetland pony in the room. I have heard rumors that this council is abiding to Mr. Danielson and that we have to do his bidding. Those of you who know me well and know Assemblyman Danielson well know that Phil Kramer doesn't do Mr. Danielson's bidding, and Mr. Danielson doesn't do Phil Kramer's biddings. There are many times we work together, there are many times we butt heads, and neither of us are afraid to do that. I can also assure you from what I have heard that Mr. Danielson's political career has this teeny bit much, if that much, affect or would be affected by whether this town says yes or no on that. So he has talked to a number of council members to inform us of the issues, but he really hasn't pushed an agenda, and he's no reason to, and we've no reason to, as I said, do his bidding. But that being said, Assemblyman, would you do us the honor, please? Name and address. You can give the State House address if you'd like.
Joseph Danielson, 49 Marcy Street. Mayor, Council, thank you very much, and a big namaste to everybody. So how appropriate to go from a peace and nonviolent discussion to cannabis, because anyone trying cannabis isn't bothering anybody. So start off the discussion with some humor. So it's as my position in the Assembly, I held 5 public meetings throughout the state of New Jersey for many hours, researched for many months. I've learned more about cannabis than I ever thought that I'd ever learn. And I'll even admit, I even tried some cookies out in Colorado as part of research. You know, it's my job. But the truth of the matter is, this is a serious subject matter. And cannabis is a substance that really is not getting credit where it is due. It should be taken more seriously. But let's start off with a couple of facts. Cannabis is in our community. It's been in our community for a long time. It's been in everybody's community around the world for thousands of years. But right now, it's in our community only in 2 fashions, either medically permissive or the black market run by the cartels and the gangs. That's a fact. So now it's becoming more legal throughout the country. It's legal in New Jersey for medical use, but still that's a very limited market. The black market is doing very well in New Jersey. Now, if you have a teenager or had a teenager, it was probably in your house as well. I have 2 teenagers. So the state is looking at how do we match certain priorities. Now, I started off my priority are patients, medicine, science, inclusion and social justice, and business success. They all must come together. Legislatively, there is a provision that in order for someone to receive a license, they have to find a location in the town, and the town has to permit that type of business in the town. That was more for political reasons, I would guess, because this is a new industry. There's new science being met, there's new curriculums, there's new doctors, there's new discoveries, there's all that. In the middle of all this, I went back to my experience in the hospital with my daughter that was going through cancer treatment at the age of 16. And many of the children in there were not released from the hospital because of simple sores that show up on your lips or in your throat, in esophagus, or out the exit. And if they couldn't eat or drink, you couldn't go home. But maybe they could not get any more morphine or painkillers. Their bodies were too small or fragile. But if there was a doctor there or the hospital permitted it, potentially a cannabis administration could have let that kid go home. And let me tell you something, if you're on that child's ward and you hear those cries and those screams, you would have no problem with cannabis. If you had a relative or a friend that just could not take the opioid medicine anymore, you would have no problem with cannabis. Certainly not for medical. So I asked the Township Council, in a political discussion, was discuss it publicly and make a decision. Because there are investing groups from around the world and around the country that now are applying for medical marijuana licensing. And they want to know if Franklin could be a potential home or not. Decide how you want. But what I would not like to happen is that Franklin waste the time of these serious people. You see, some of these groups were going to bring in $30 million just for one location. That's the typical investment for a fully vertically integrated license holder. Or if they're just a processor, it might be $10 million. Or a dispensary could be $2 million. It's a lot of money, it's a lot of science, it's a lot of investment, it's jobs, it's science, and so forth. And the truth of the matter is, a processor or a cultivator, you won't even know they exist. Dispensary will get some attention because you're going to have foot traffic and car traffic. You're going to have patients. You're at a crossroads now throughout the state where we go from exploiting neighborhoods of drugs to now treating this as a medicine and servicing those neighborhoods. We all know medical patients that there's a couple in the room right now. Our former mayor is a medical marijuana patient. Now it's anxiety and stress. So if you hang out with me, you could probably qualify being a patient. So I'm asking you to look at this smartly, understand really what you're going to do, because New Brunswick has applicants, North Brunswick, Piscataway. You're really deciding where the jobs are going to be and where the tax dollars go. Do you not want those jobs and taxes here? Do you want your residents to drive to other towns to get their medicine? Or do you want them to stay in town to get their medicine? That's really what it is. So if you look at this as just a different type of pharmacy, all right, how far do you want your people to drive? Because if not Franklin, they're going to go the other side of 27. So one last part. It is my guess that adult use of cannabis will also be legal in the very near future. Adult use. I really didn't invest a whole lot of time into the adult use legislation. I'm not excited for or against. My priorities have always been based upon my own personal experience, Mayor, is the patients, medicine, science, inclusion, social justice, and business success. So Mayor, council, don't stress out over your decision, because it's just really a matter of where do you want the tax dollars, where do you want the jobs? Do you want to invite this type of investment group in here? And certainly, you shouldn't waste a whole lot of time, but you should make a decisive and energetic and a committed decision one way or the other. And Mayor, if anyone wants to talk to me, I can be available out in the hall.
I have a question or two, softball questions, as I asked the attorney. So there's cultivation, processing, and distribution. Those are the three areas. You made the statement that cultivation and processing, it wouldn't have been noticed. How am I not going to notice a huge farm in Franklin?
So, okay, so in New Jersey, because of our climate, they're not going to grow outside. If they were, they would get maybe one season. They would be more susceptible to a bad crop, to ask any farmer. Indoors is much more consistent. It's more stable. It's safer. They grow faster. They're growing 24/7. It'll be all indoors. You have processors, and all that is a processor is a combination of an analytical chemistry lab and a bakery. That's what it's going to be. They're going to extract the 400 compounds out of cannabis, either using butane, CO2, oils, and they may or may not isolate those compounds, but they are going to put them in a different delivery vehicle: gummy bear, cookie, brownie, paste, oils, lollipops. So that's why I say it's kind of like a bakery. So there's culinary science and there's chemistry science, all indoors. You wouldn't know it. I mean, I think you even mentioned to me way back when there is a drug manufacturer at the end of, in our M1 area.
Yeah, don't say where.
Yeah, so like, and nobody know. I didn't even know they were there. And, I've probably been in that building with the fire department. You just won't know. Now, however, if you're fully vertically integrated, if you are a processor, a cultivator, a processor, and a dispensary all in one location, and that is the preferred business model because there's some economies there, you will know the cultivators there because, when you go into the building, you'll smell it. It'll be more pungent. But outside, you won't know.
And you said to me earlier, you drew an analogy with alcohol. Do you remember that analogy?
There's a lot of analogies. Which one?
The one about if we did not sell alcohol in town.
Yeah, that's true. So cannabis is in our neighborhoods. It's already here, either medically or not authorized possession. It's here. Nothing's going to change that. So if we did not allow these businesses to be in Franklin, it won't change the presence of how much cannabis is in Franklin. It's just a matter of fact, how long are people going to drive? They're going to go to North Brunswick, New Brunswick. People who want cannabis, they're going to get cannabis. People who want a bottle of scotch, they're going to go drive an extra mile to get their bottle of scotch. It's going to make no difference. The only difference is will the jobs be here? Will those tax dollars be here? Will the investment be here? Will the science be here?
Any other questions for the Assemblyman?
I just want to note one. I hope it ends up in the final legislation. I did create a research and development license. So if that goes through, and if you allow medical marijuana to come to Franklin, we could potentially be the home of a research and development license permit holder, which is nice. They would partner with Rutgers or the Robert Wood Johnson or the Cancer Institute. So thank you, Mayor, Council.
Thank you. One, I mentioned I am a doctor. I also am on call, so if I go pick up this thing and run from the room, it's not out of the wrath of the subject that I'm running from. Okay, it's public discussion time. Do we have a motion to open for public discussion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on that? Seeing none. All in favor of opening for public discussion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried for open for public discussion. 2 minutes. This discussion is on cannabis only. Please come on up.
Once again, thank you, Mayor, Council, and everyone. My name is Kunal Lakhia, resident of 8 Super Court. I'm speaking in favor of allowing the motion because I believe, as our assemblyman rightly said, we like it or we don't, medically or through the black market, cannabis is here. If we control it through the legal means, at least we have a way to do it. It brings us the tax dollars. I just hope that if there is any implication on law enforcement, we make sure that they are equipped to face whatever comes along with it. But in general, I completely agree with the Assemblyman and the work that he's trying to do in bringing this to our town. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening again. Bill Connell, 25 Spring Street. I just wanted to speak in support of this. I don't see a downside. In fact, Kmart closed. You just move a letter, and that can be Jmart. And you can plant and grow and do all that. That's it. I don't see a downside from the location aspect. You things like drug-free zones in schools, where do those laws apply? How do those interact with, that would be a question I had. I live by an M1 zone, but it's buried in a residential, as opposed to over by 287 has an M1 zone, which is not as residential. That would be a question I'd have. Mr. Tibbs, you name-checked me, or at least tried. I'm a Democratic committee person, okay, and I take that responsibility very importantly. And not only do I look at the issue, I try to educate
Are you addressing
everybody.
marijuana?
What?
Are you addressing marijuana?
I'm just addressing how I feel about my responsibility as a committee person.
Yeah.
But I don't just say things, I try to educate people
This
as well.
discussion is limited to cannabis.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. No, you're right. You're right.
Bob Thomas, 147 Cedar Grove Lane. I want to try to speak personally, not as a member of zoning and planning. I don't have a problem myself with the medical marijuana use, but I see using marijuana becoming much less restrictive in the future. And that's why the resolution, which in general I would support, and maybe Mr. Renone can correct me, but I have a concern when you broadly say use it in M1 or M2 zones. I believe it should say conditional use in an M1 or M2 zone, because all M1 and M2 zones in Franklin are not created equal. You have an M1 or an M2 zone that's got 8 churches, 3 schools, and is bordered by residential areas. Frankly, as a planning board member, I would think that this resolution, should it pass, is going to come back to the planning board and go through the normal ordinance discussion and so on with the council and the board. I would have to it would take a tremendous amount of convincing for me personally to support an ordinance that would put the possibility of future marijuana facilities within 1,000 feet, let's say, and that's a number I'm pulling out of the air because we use it, of a school or a church.
I think that that's already covered in the state law. I think it's restricted in the state law, so I don't think that remember, this is only this resolution is specifically conditioned, more importantly, on the town amending the zoning ordinance.
He only has 2 minutes.
So we'll deal with that in the zoning ordinance,
Well,
but the state law would prohibit that in any event.
then you can cut me off right away, because those are the things I'm concerned about. I think
That's taken care
as
of.
long as we have the ability to maintain some control over the type of facility, not the type, but the hours, the
Time's up.
location, and everything, I think both boards have established a lot of precedent in working with applicants to make applications work to the benefit of the town and the applicant.
Okay, thank you. And this certainly would go before planning and the regular process when it comes to a zoning, any zoning issues. Next, please.
Carol Peterson. I live at 12 Lake Avenue in Somerset. I'm a retired advanced practice nurse who's worked with kids. I've seen kids die from overdosing with marijuana. I've seen kids get into all kinds of problems. We've paid money after money with DARE and other programs in New Brunswick, Bullfrogs and Butterflies, to take and keep them away. My concern is, with this, I believe in the medical uses of marijuana. Whatever location you choose should be away from schools. You have, next to the M2 zone where I live, 8 schools. One is New Brunswick High School. The rest are public schools except for St. Matthias, and I am including Sampson G. Smith because it's near Dahmer. Your best bet is to put it over near 287, where there are fewer schools. Yes, you have a high school. You do have 4 private schools, 3 on Pierce and 1 on Mettlers. And when they're looking at production, the production you have to watch the most are the cookies, the gummy bears, the lollipops, which have caused death in California in kids, Colorado in kids, and the other states have found they've had similar problems. My concern is it's going to fall into kids' hands accidentally, or it's going to be bought by somebody who has a medical license to use it from a doctor and end up in your schools. I take my information from a CME course from California. We all had to take it in New Jersey, so I know what I'm talking about, and I don't want to see money override our children. You can replace money. You cannot replace a child. There's no amount of money that can save them if they die from this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, good evening. My name is Amanda. My name is Amanda Hoffman. I'm a resident. I live at 601 Regency Drive in Franklin Park. If I may, I'd just like to speak to the previous speaker. In my research, I have not seen any lethal dose of THC or CBD when they tried to set the LD50 of THC during research for Marinol. They found there was no milligrams per kilograms that could, cause death. It can make you uncomfortable. It can severely affect the body, and you may need, fluids and rest. But cannabis is safer than opioids or a lot of the other medications that may be around the house, Tide Pods, things like that are attractive to children. And like anything else, we would need to keep it secure and out of the reach of children, like any other medication or potentially dangerous substance. That's actually not why I came up here, though. I'm a resident of Franklin Park, and I currently drive to Woodbridge, Montclair, Belmar down South Jersey, Egg Harbor, Secaucus, or Cranberry, just to obtain my medication. It's like having only 6 Walgreens in the entire state. I would prefer to have those jobs and those taxes in my own local community, so in part I don't have to drive so far. But also there are many patients that have, they don't have the ability to travel the way I do. My disease is currently in remission thanks to Entyvio and cannabis. And other patients aren't as lucky or are newer into the process where they're still trying to achieve remission. So having a local, centrally positioned location in Somerset County, convenient for patients, would help their patients and caregivers access medical marijuana. I'm also on the board for the Coalition for Medical Marijuana in New Jersey. I started off as a skeptic, and when I joined the program 5 years ago, I thought this was all just a bunch of crap, and maybe it would help me not be nauseous from my chemotherapy, but that was all I was expecting, and it has been a tremendous lifesaver. And I've seen other patients reduce the use of opioids and quit alcohol. So I have more information if you have any questions for me, or if anyone has any questions about medical marijuana. And I wanted to thank you for your resolution. Hope it will support. Thank you.
Thank you.
John is Tip 25 Parkside. If the medical marijuana doesn't have an addendum to it, I would be against it. Because, you see, of course, Joe Danielson could be biased. He simply told us that his daughter had cancer, and therefore he found out that medical marijuana was good for treatment for his daughter. Now, I have 1,000 kids out there that have been locked up behind small amounts of marijuana. Now, until there could be decriminalization of marijuana in this neighborhood, an addendum to Joe Danielson's marijuana, medical marijuana, I disagree with it. I don't think you should have no medical marijuana in Franklin Township. If it doesn't have an addendum to it, where it's a decriminalization where the kids with small amounts don't get locked up and go to jail.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Mayor, seeing no one else come forward, a motion to close the public portion of the
Seconded.
hearing.
Moved in, seconded. I'm hesitating here to people time. Seeing, no, that, you're fine. I just don't want to be accused of cutting it off soon. Would you withdraw your motion, Mr. Vesey?
Oh, sure. If there's someone else, withdraw that motion
Yeah.
for a moment.
Okay, thank you.
Arnold Schmidt, 134 Hickory Road. I was just
Into the mic, sir.
sorry. Arnold Schmidt, 134 Hickory Road. I was just trying to put something together in response to the nurse who talked about children she saw that overdosed and possibly died from the use of marijuana. I'm not doubting her. She's a professional. I find it hard to believe that somebody would overdose from marijuana unless it was treated with something, some kind of chemicals that don't belong in that marijuana. I think the idea of having medical marijuana is so that it is regulated in a facility and distributed in a facility where it's monitored and it is known what is in each product that is being sold. And with that regulation, there should not be overdoses. There should not be deaths. But children that continue or people that continue to buy it on the street from illegal distributors, they're going to be getting bad products. And those people that are selling it on the streets, those bad products, they're making a profit on it. And what are they doing with their profits? Their profits are going to purchasing other drugs, more marijuana that's treated, possibly opioids, possibly guns and ammunition that are going to who knows who, gangs, whatever. So the point is that the need for medical marijuana, I think, is very important to help get the illegal drugs off the streets. It's not going to be completely off the streets, but you're going to have more off the streets. You're going to have access to good medical marijuana, and I think that's important. Thank you.
Anyone else at all, please? Seeing nobody else, Mayor, I'll motion again the close the public portion of this hearing.
Seconded.
Moved in, seconded. Seeing no discussion on council, all in favor of closing public discussion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. We will continue with the cannabis portion of the agenda. It's now time for council discussion on the item. Well, actually, I guess the most appropriate thing was, do we have a motion on the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
So this is a resolution expressing the township support for the operation of an alternative treatment center with Franklin under creative conditions is hereby presented to Township Council for consideration. It's moved and seconded. Is there discussion from council?
Call the question.
Well, I have some discussion. So LD 50 was mentioned. LD 50 is the lethal dose that would kill 50% of the people. The LD 50 for marijuana was established, and it's the amount that is in between 20,000 and 40,000 times the amount in one marijuana cigarette. A smoker would theoretically have to consume 1,500 pounds of marijuana within about 15 minutes in order to induce a lethal response. So, yes, in an industrial accident, one could die of marijuana, but otherwise it would be quite. To me, this discussion is, as the Assemblyman said, is about jobs and placement, but it's also about the availability, if we were to have retail medical marijuana here, the availability to patients. The state has passed a law that it is legal to use marijuana for medical purposes. I've been actually quite neutral on this, and marijuana is not a miracle drug. It is a drug. There are pluses to it, there are minuses to it, there are side effects to it. Its major side effect is why it is popular in the recreational area. But it is a drug that seems to many people to be a godsend. And I was pretty neutral on it until my friend got brain cancer. I'm not as neutral on it. So I cannot, I know currently people in Franklin are driving a long way to get their medical marijuana, and the doctor and me cannot abide that. If it is legal to have, then it is our obligation to not be an impediment to that. I don't know that we will get a dispensary here, but I personally do not want to stand in the way. So people have noted that I do not allow, according to Robert's rules, speeches during votes. So I will not give a speech during my vote, but my vote will be yes, and that is why my vote will be yes. Anyone else wishing to speak? Madam Clerk, call the question.
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois?
Yes.
Councilman Galtieri?
Yes.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Onijaka?
Yes.
Councilman Prasad?
Yes.
Councilman Vasanella?
Yes.
Councilman Wright?
Yes.
Okay, I guess we are now going back to item number 7, counting committee reports. So, keep these brief, because there will be a long one. Councilman Gualtieri.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Real briefly, admin was canceled this past week, especially with the summer session. So we should be starting up, I'm assuming in September probably. Oh,
Actually,
no,
your meeting is scheduled for that, maybe, so maybe.
So maybe not. All right, I swear I go to council, to admin meetings when we have them. As far as sewage authority, I do want to point out, at the last meeting, we had talked about You as the residents spoke up and asked us to find resolutions for the household hazardous waste and shredding event that was held here, and it did disrupt traffic and everything. The Sewage Authority will be hosting, has already put into the county that we will be hosting in 2019. So DeMott Lane should be open, the farmers market should be fully accessible, and we listened to you as the residents and we found a resolution. So thank you for your feedback, and again, we do listen. I believe the other thing that I've been pushing in town will come up with the public safety discussion tonight, so I am done.
Thank you. Councilman Oli Jaka?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The Sierra Leonean community of Franklin, they organized a general graduation party for the kids that graduated this year. I was there and with my friend, the ambassador for the Masra, who is here today. We were there. The party was well organized, and gifts and pleasantries were exchanged. This is the kind of diversity we have in Franklin, and we will continue to work towards it. It was well organized, and personally I was there and I enjoyed it. That's what I have for now, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Kimberly Francois.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have any council committee reports, and I'll probably reserve my comments for the other discussion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
God bless you. Councilman Vasanella.
Thank you, Mayor. So two issues. First, public safety issue, and then I'll deliver the report from the Peace and Nonviolent Committee. So we had a very good public safety meeting today. The main issues that we covered were discussing some issues with response time and capabilities for East Millstone First Aid Squad. Some ideas were thrown around, and we just want to be able to, of course, provide a safe service. And there'll be representatives from East Millstone First Aid Squad were there, and they'll be coming back next month after they meet with some other people relevant to that issue, and we'll see if we can come up with some recommendations to improve that situation. Two programs, and I want to congratulate our Chief of Police and all of his staff. We have two programs that are going to be coming forward in ordinance hopefully next month. The Public Safety Committee, including Mayor Kramer, Councilman Wright, myself, unanimously recommend these ordinances move forward and council approves them. Of course, we will enjoy their commentary on them, but let me tell you quickly. One is a residential security camera registration program, also known as Stronger Together. And what that does is it basically, it's absolutely voluntary, but any businesses or residences, anybody who has a security camera, and nowadays obviously they're becoming more commonplace, can register with the police department, because often they are used and have been used by our police department to help solve crimes or to help solve them quicker. And we think it's a wonderful program. The more information will come about it. Again, it's strictly voluntary, but what it is they form a database by everybody who registers, and then police will be right on it if something happens, where they'll be able to reach out to the individuals that may have cameras that whatever incident may have happened would help them expeditiously, solve the crime. So more will be coming with that, and the ordinance, I appreciate council reviewing and consider it again. The Public Safety Committee recommends it. The other one is another program. I don't mean to go fast, but I know we have a big issue to get here. Is an e-commerce safe zone, and I know Councilman Gardatari over there, as I call him Councilman Will, has been talking about this for a while, and the police department, led by Chief Grammer, has come up with an idea of having a few parking spots in an area near the police department. They'll give you the information if it goes forward. It would be spelled out in an ordinance, but that's for the safety of anybody who is conducting e-commerce. I'm not familiar with it. I don't do it, but people meet often to basically buy and sell legally, legal product, but unfortunately sometimes unfortunate incidences resulting in theft or, God forbid, violence, and unfortunately even a murder in New Jersey, if I recall right. So we have been proactive, and I'm hoping it's going to come to council. You're not on public safety, but I got a sense you'll support it. Again, I welcome council to review the ordinance and have any questions, probably should address them to the chief. So that's, hopefully those ordinances will be here in September. And again, this is all about making this town safer. And I applaud the efforts of our police department, and hopefully we'll see if they get passed. So the next issue is a piece of nonviolence. And I'm not trying to rush this, I just want to be as condensed as possible, or try to hear. So, first of all, this isn't my project. It wasn't my committee. But I volunteered to serve on the committee that was formed, the ad hoc committee, which also reached out and did have a, what I think is a wonderful community input component to it. So, they've asked me to deliver this message. And although, in general, I support it, this is the message of the organization, of the committee that met and spent over 2 hours at this table on a Friday night last Friday. So, and that's, in addition to a meeting a couple months back, and in addition to, I'm going to say, no less than hundreds of hours of conversations concerning this. So I'm going to read the what I was given to read, and I'm going to read it verbatim. But just to put a little bit of my own commentary here. I think it was 2007. Councilwoman Francois, myself, and Councilman Prasad were on this council. We had, unfortunately, 2 youths murdered in this township. It was a dark period for our township. It was not a happy time. And everybody tried to come up with ideas. And I congratulate some council people that have since retired, Councilwoman here and others, came up with one initiative, FYI, Franklin Youth Initiative. I won't go into detail. Most people know what it is. Other people were just trying to come up with ideas. Councilman Prasad, I remember the day he came to me and said, I think he was traveling in California, and he saw this beautiful monument, I believe it was Dr. King and Gandhi, and said, oh my God, if we can bring something like this to Franklin and it could save one kid's life, or just maybe to open a book and see what these people were about. So I have a lot of issues with how Councilman Prasad handled this. He got very emotional and passionate and probably could have handled it much better. But at no time have I, and I've told him so on many occasions, but at no time have I ever thought there was any malice or manipulation or any personal agenda other than to try to have people remember as often as possible that there is a peaceful and nonviolent way to live harmoniously, especially in a town as diverse, which we celebrate constantly, and probably, from what I hear, is one of the most diverse towns in this state, if not country. So I just want to give a little background. Again, he could have handled it much better sometimes, and every one of us have had our pet projects and ideas, and have got caught up in the emotions and the passions and have not handled it right. He's flawed, like every one of us here, up here on this DS, and everyone in the audience, and the 4 people that may be represented in that Peace and Nonviolence Memorial. So I'm going to read the statement in a minute that I was asked to read. But again, this is not my project. I know some people think it was mine for some reason. It's not my committee. I volunteered to serve because I and Councilwoman Francois are the only ones that I think were around when it first came up. It's been kicked around for 11 years. Quite frankly, I didn't know if he'd ever get it done. All the requirements and all the concerns that were mentioned, I agree with absolutely. And it's a shame that all these information couldn't come out sooner, because every concern is valid. And Councilman Prasad has been held accountable and will be to meet every requirement that I believe was put forward to him. And our attorney will comment on any of the legal issues. I'm not a lawyer. So he has been asked to jump through hoops. And quite frankly, I don't know how he's accomplished it. But whether you support other decisions he's made or whether you have an issue with the process, I can appreciate that. But I'm asking you to look at the heart and soul of what this is about. And no one's ever going to be happy with every decision we make or every aspect of every decision. So I wrote notes, and I don't even want to look at them and read them. That's how this came about. It's been 11 years in the making. And just real quickly, because I've been asked to talk about the issue about the location. And then I'm going to read this statement, and I have nothing else further to say about it. He wanted it in this complex. It was kicked around, the municipal complex. The Veterans Memorial is one of the most sacred things we have here. People said, don't intrude upon that. Okay. Then we looked at another property. We have the white building over there, the old schoolhouse, which someday we'll figure out what to do with. But that made it so we couldn't put it over there. Then we didn't know what we wanted to do with the area where the gazebo is. And I applaud Mr. Grippo and the effort to win that gazebo. I think it is a wonderful addition. And it's probably what actually really belongs there the most, in my opinion. And I think council, because we approved it unanimously. We have a wonderful municipal complex. There's different reasons. And over time, people kind of push the project away, saying, good idea, but take it somewhere else. So a couple years ago, 3-4 years ago maybe, when we first started, the Consolata project was evolving over years. Uses of that, from the YMCA to the school board administration to a half a dozen other ideas that are still being kicked around and will come and be vetted in public before any decisions are made. Well, at a land use committee meeting, and it was a while back, I think it might have been, staff or council member, the idea, we're looking at this land, someone said, why don't you put it there? He didn't force us to put it there. He didn't tell us to tell them. We have planners, we have administration, we got Dr. Chase, who's a great mind in land use. It was looked at and vetted and talked about that actually might be the best spot based on the input over years of people saying where it should go and how it should be put. As far as the cost, and I'm not even going to get into that because the statement here gets into that, but I just want to give a little history on the location. I don't know where the best location is. To me, when it was presented and all the reasons why that would be a good one, and I know myself and others on that land use committee asked, as long as it doesn't interfere with a Y or with open space, or there's talk of a dog park, or there's talking about the school administration building, it was always understood that tucked away in that little corner would not interfere with any of the other ideas or plans that it seems like most of us will embrace and hopefully will get built there someday. So I want to be clear, if you don't agree with him or the project, that's one thing. But he did not manipulate to put it in that space and actually was kind of pushed to put it in that space. So I applaud the gentleman who came up and talked earlier, but I have the utmost respect for the people who were against it. But there's a whole history here, and that possibly, could have been handled better by Mr. Prasad. But there's a lot of facts that I think if everybody knew, would understand there was no malice, no manipulation. He put, hundreds of emails? He knows they're public record. Nobody, I could appreciate the concern for transparency, but I think if everybody sorted through it, they'd understand this was not something evil. This was something beautiful that unfortunately the passion involved let it kind of run amok. So let me read the statement, and I'm not going to say anything else about it. I felt that needed to be said. Okay. I was asked to read this statement by the committee that met, which was a good cross-section of a lot of people in this town that I have a lot of respect for. And my understanding, this was a unanimous consent. This is their feelings, and they'd like me to present it. Well, give a short background of the reason for selecting the space. I think I did that. Okay. Mention that the Citizens Committee was formed with two mandates. Ensure the cost of construction is raised from private donors completely. Ensure all legal issues with regards to copyright is addressed and the township attorney is satisfied. And I'll let the township attorney talk about the legalities. Okay. Friday, August 10, 2018, ad hoc council meeting, which was held at the council chamber at 7 p.m. with the Citizens Committee. The committee was informed that a total of $80,000 have been donated. $15,000 was collected during an earlier campaign and fundraising campaign, and we have received a check for $65,000 from sorry if I'm mispronouncing this, Naresh Sharma, Dr. Naresh Sharma, who is a resident of Franklin Township. Councilman Rajiv Prasad also informed the committee that the statues, pedestals, lights, cameras, granite were donated in kind by Dr. Payush Patel. Again, I apologize if the name is mispronounced. After the conceptual plan and location are approved by the township, if indeed the council approves it, Nigerian Associate will help develop detailed plans and cost estimates and work with the Township Engineering Department to ensure the memorial meets all the safety requirements and codes of the town. If the cost exceeds $80,000, the additional funds will be raised from private donors. It is desired to have the groundbreaking, I didn't say being built, the groundbreaking, before or by September 29th. However, it's understood that this may be delayed to ensure the detailed plan is approved by the engineering department and meets all those requirements. Okay. So they have a motion that they're requesting a council person makes, and that motion is the location for the memorial to be on the site of Route 27 and Quarterly Lane, and for the council to approve the conceptual plan, which is here, and I think everyone's had a chance to look at. Nigerian engineer and masonry contractor are to meet with the township engineer as soon as possible to determine what detailed information is needed to meet the township safety requirements based on the plan. And based on the input from the engineering department, the detailed plan and cost estimate will be developed before any pre-construction meetings. The manager is directed to expedite the township input and approval process to get the memorial built as soon as possible with a target groundbreaking on or before September 29th. And that is from the Citizen Committee / Ad Hoc Committee. So I leave you with that, and if any council would like to make a motion relevant to that, but I will ask the attorney, one second, I will ask the attorney to comment on any of the legal concerns that have been met or still need to be met.
Hold on, we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Wait, are you making the motion?
No, I'm not making the motion.
Yeah, we don't have a motion. Okay, so then the attorney can
I
comment.
was asked to have the attorney to comment, and then if any council member, the committee is asking a council member to make the motion.
The attorney can comment.
Council, Mr. Mayor, since the last time this matter was discussed, I think the structure of this project has changed. And I believe that it is the now involvement of the community foundation that has changed it fundamentally. My understanding is, and I've seen 2, maybe 3 opinions that either the donor or the community foundation has solicited, in which 2 attorneys have opined that first, we require a license from the MLK Foundation in order to use that statue, and while we've been granted approval, we have not been granted a license, and I'm assuming that requires a form to be filled out and a negotiation of whatever fee is to be charged to the foundation for the use of that likeness. As to the other statues, the attorney has opined to the community foundation that in his opinion that the use of these replica statues would fall under the fair use doctrine, and therefore, and also I think that he opined that he believed that since the estates of Gandhi and Mother Teresa had never filed suit against anybody, he thought it was not likely that would happen. That all having been said, I thought that the appropriate template for this is similar to that which we use for the gazebo, and that is there's a not-for-profit foundation that should be the one to accept the donations. That, in my opinion, that the only way that we can adequately protect the township and the foundation from any claims of copyright infringement would be to have them indemnify, hold harmless, and defend the donor, indemnify, hold harmless, and defend the township and the community foundation from any claims. That the township will essentially grant permission to the community foundation, much like it did to the East Millstone Historical Society, to use that portion of property for the memorial, and that one step further than what we did for the gazebo, that I believe that because this is, because of the nature of this project, that there should be a written agreement between the township and the community foundation. I had a long discussion with Mr. Vornlacher. I think he and I share the concern about a private contractor who was not subject to public bidding constructing on township-owned property, that we will need to confer with staff and make sure that things like appropriate insurance certificates are provided to us. But in that way, I think that it limits, my interest here is, once again, I have a very small interest in all of this, and that's just protecting the township from any claims and protecting them, through the course of the construction of this project. And I think that would at least alleviate my concerns. Once again, I'm not a copyright attorney. I am led to believe that the two attorneys that have rendered opinions are in fact copyright attorneys. They seem not to be concerned, as long as the donor is satisfied with that, to the extent that he is prepared to sign an indemnification personally to defend the township in the event that there's a lawsuit, then I think that we're protected. And honestly, I've been asked very specific questions about what happens if you get sued. Well, the answer is, if we get sued, the township at that point in time, if it felt it was exposed, it could tell the community foundation to remove the offending statute. So, I think that protects us from a copyright point of view. And I think that we're fully capable, because we do it all the time with farmers and anybody else who does anything on our property, of protecting the township from any legal liability as a result of the construction activity on our property. And the only other thing that I'll add is that I did receive for the first time today an actual copy of a communication that there was an intent to donate. So it's something that I haven't had before, so at least I now have something in writing.
Mr. Mayor, is
Yes,
this,
sir.
is Councilman Vasanella, his motion?
So he denies that he made a motion. He read what was suggested by the committee to be a motion.
Okay,
So someone, if this is going to move along, someone would have to make that motion.
I'm going to make that motion, and I'm going to make that motion to Councilman Vasanella. I want that to be a motion from Councilman Vasanella on those things.
You can't make a motion for Councilman Vesson.
I want to make a motion on the comment, the end of the comment where he said what he wanted to be done. And that was the location for the monument, the council approval of the concept plan, the engineering and masonry contractor. I think that the attorney made a good point about having someone else doing work on township property. I believe that was your problem with that? Okay, so in taking in what his comments were, I would like to pull, if subject to Councilman Vasanella that I'm making the motion on, to pull back number 3, which was the engineer and masonry contractor to meet with the township engineer. I would like that to stay, but they would not be the ones to actually help me out there, Mr. Township Manager. They would actually not be the ones to.
I don't know what you want me to say.
Yes,
In all
this
fairness,
is comic.
But help him out.
Taking into account.
I would like to help you. I don't know where you're going with this one.
Okay, let's put it this way. Let's go straight way, and then we'll come back out and change things. I want to make a motion that we approve the location, the concept plan, and ask the manager to expedite the township input and approval process, safety requirements. Like the motion, make a motion that we do just that.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
So we have a motion and a second. Now we have discussion. Any discussion?
Yeah,
Woman.
I'd like to discuss. So clearly, we have to approve the location of the memorial on the site on Route 27, Conturier Lane, because that is public land. And clearly, we need to approve the conceptual plan, which is the monuments, the 4 monuments. And I think that motion suffices for that. The one thing that I want to make sure that we're clear on is some of the conditions that the township attorney bring up as far as the donor signing the indemnification clause, and if there are any other types of, you mentioned something about a written agreement between the township and the community foundation.
Correct.
I think, we want to I'd also like to include in that motion, based on those conditions that are satisfied and met, that we would approve this project as well.
That's what I was looking for, Councilwoman Francois.
Now,
There you
now,
go.
Councilwoman, those agreements haven't obviously been drafted yet.
Right, so that's why it should.
So my question is it your anticipation that this resolution would authorize somebody to sign those agreements, or do you need those, should those come back to council again?
You need to come back to council.
Okay, thank you.
So
So
then-
we'll try to get them done between now, well, we'll certainly get them prepared. If we can get them signed by the other side, we will do that also between now and your next council meeting.
Anything else, Councilwoman?
Councilman Chase?
I don't think so.
Excuse me. Anything else, Councilwoman?
No, I think if those documents come back to council and we approve those as well, then I think this whole concept about expediting, what you said about expediting the township attorney, the township manager expediting, I don't think that should be part of this motion at all.
Just to be,
So,
discussion.
No, Councilman, was that part of your motion? I didn't hear you actually make the expediting point in your motion.
Yes, but I'm willing to pull it out.
So you're willing to pull it, Mr.
I'm willing
Prasad?
to
You
pull it
seconded
out.
the motion. Are you willing to pull that?
The reason why, I would say is we don't want it postponed ad infinitum, that's all. As long as you give it the due priority, it's fine. I'm willing to.
Okay, so
Withdraw.
I'm saying I'm hearing that you are willing to pull the expedited part. I understand that you don't want it to drag, but you are willing to pull the expedited part. So the motion and the second is pulled on the expedited portion, as you wished. Anything else, Councilwoman?
No, I think that's it. The main thing that we were concerned about, and I know that there are people from the public that think that there are some of us that don't recognize the importance of this project. We just want to make sure that all the i's are dotted and the t's are crossed, and that we are doing this in a fashion that has been done decently and in order, and that we've satisfied all conditions to make sure that there aren't any liabilities against the township. We appreciate the fact that this is going to be built based on private donations. We appreciate the fact that the Community Foundation will be the source and the directive party to kind of move this thing forward. It won't be a township, so to speak, project. It'll be more of a private project. But we want to make sure, because we've not done something like this before, that we're doing it the right way. Everybody's satisfied. The concept itself is a beautiful concept. Where we're going to put it, we want to make sure that everybody understands that's the place where it's going to go, and we're going to move forward in a fashion that we're not expediting things and doing things the wrong way. We're going to get it done right the first time. And that's been the concern of this entire governing body. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Chase?
Well, the part of the motion I'm concerned about is the endorsement of the concept plan, which is something that basically has just come to the council tonight. Some of us have seen a reduced version of it a couple of days ago. And I have questions about certain aspects of it. I'm all in favor of having the park. I'm happy to have it at this location. But the exact size, and in particular things like the proposed sidewalk in front, well, that would be in the state right-of-way, and it rapidly gets very complicated. And therefore, I wouldn't have I think really even for safety purposes, you would prefer to have the access just from the parking lot there. Another point, I don't know whether council is fully aware that this is proposed to have a video display which will show Reverend King making one or more of his speeches. And I'm sure that's very educational. I'm worried about the maintenance of that, particularly, I mean, such things are very good, but usually they're in a building with supervision. And this is here just out in the open without anyone there supervising it. And I wonder how well this will stand up. So I'd like to have council have a chance from now to our next meeting to consider, is this exactly the concept plan that we want? And if the motion that was made to remove the expedited portions accomplishes that, fine. I think we're having a real problem with trying to write a resolution extemporaneously here. Usually, as with the cannabis resolution, we had a resolution all written out before us that we could consider. In this case, we're trying to write a resolution off, or at least amend a resolution off the top of our head. So I'd rather us have a properly written resolution at our next meeting.
So you were actually, as I take that, you were asking to entirely change the motion. It sounds to me, and don't let me put words in your mouth, and certainly not words in the mouth of the motioner and seconder. You want to withdraw the motion and create a motion to proceed with additional planning to have a finished product. I hesitate to say the word finished product, but finished product presented at the next township meeting, including a resolution.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a point on this?
Sure, I'm stumbling here. I'd take any help.
So, if I understood, following this, we're basically making a motion to go ahead with this. We just added to, or based on certain stipulations, but that there would be a resolution at the next meeting for certain aspects of this. So I'm not sure why we need to pull anything, because we've already said or amended the motion to have resolutions at the next meeting. As per it, basically it seems like the hesitation has already been addressed in both the motion and the motion and the amendment to the motion.
Yeah, because I didn't make a motion on the resolution.
I think, Mayor, do you mind if I step in? I think that Councilman Chase's point, and I usually don't like to speak for him because he speaks better than I do, is that to the extent that this resolution is approving a plan tonight, he thinks that's premature.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and the resolution was to approve this plan.
The motion.
The motion,
Right.
excuse me, sorry. The motion was to approve this plan, and I think that was Councilman Chase's question.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
I think if you even just remove the word plan and
The
said that we
concept.
approve the concept,
Right.
Location.
that
The location.
is really, that would satisfy me, and then we'll have a later resolution that will approve a plan.
So you're looking at the concept
And-
plan.
And I would make the point, and I'm not sure whether I fully understood what Councilman Wright was suggesting, but that it's normal for, say for anything that's going for the planning board, for the applicant's engineers to meet with the technical advisory committee of the township to make sure that details are done properly. I mean, for instance, I would suggest that we have a sidewalk just up the bit of Cortelyou Lane up to the driveway, so that anybody walking from the developments to the south, and they could walk down Cortelyou Lane, we'd have to have the crosswalk at the intersection. They could cross at the intersection and walk back up. I mean, this is one of the kind of details. Another thing, I was just wondering, which way are the statues going to face? Are they going to face the parking lot from which people enter the park, or are they going to face the highway? The plan that's before us merely shows silhouettes. It doesn't make this clear. So these are the kind of reasons why I'd say we approve the concept. We need a little more planning, I think.
Mayor?
Who's
Oh,
that?
that's me.
Oh, Councilman Vasanella.
Excuse me, Councilman.
Go ahead,
So,
Councilman Vasanella.
so anyway, just to be clear, the committee that sat here and came up and asked me to read this, they understand, and I'm sure would be fine with some tweaking of this, quote, motion. That's why I wasn't looking to present it, because it's not a motion I created. It's a motion that was a unanimous move forward. So, in response to Dr. Chase, and making sure I'm understanding Councilman Wright, our attorney said, and it was put into the motion, that he's going to come back and council will make with this the legal verifications and documents. If the sidewalk is an issue, I believe the statues are facing the road. I could be wrong, but I thought that was just understood. But I don't want to speak for Councilman Prasad. But if the sidewalk is the issue, I would think that the engineering department that sits down with the engineer, I think you even know the engineer who is doing this pro bono. So I'm fine with whatever is the safest, most practical way upon the recommendation of our in-house staff. And maybe Dr. Chase could be part of that conversation. So I'm not looking to approve every aspect. I don't think that was a motion. The idea was to move forward the concept with the legalities being secure. It understood the money's coming from private donations, and that this project is not going to get any larger or change. But I agree. Anything to do with a sidewalk has to be verified to be safe and practical by our in-house staff. And what I'm saying is, if the motion I understood correctly was that the concept based on this, not like we would not do what our in-house experts tell us. So if there's a way we can move forward the concept, and I'm going to back off, I'm not making the motion, but if Mr. Wright, based on what has been said, wants to adjust it, and then with the attorney's input comes back in September, I think the idea is to just get council to officially move it along. Nobody's trying to do this too fast. I think Councilman Prasad, if I could speak for him, just wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to be dragged out and delayed unnecessarily. So we got to do it right, and we have to do it safe. Thank you.
Let's
Mayor,
amend the motion.
Please, let me make my own comment.
Councilman Onijaka.
Yes, from my own understanding, the first thing is that we all have accepted the concept that this thing will go forward. Yes. The second thing is the process. I think from what the attorney has just said, all we need to do is to make sure that all the process and the legal, all the procedures and the legal process are in place. That will come off later. So that is what I understand this to be. Unless if it's not like that, then let me know.
And the concept.
And the concept too. Yes.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
if
sir.
I can. since we all had a little kick at this puppy, I want to clean this whole thing up.
No kicking puppies.
All right. I know you got two dogs. All right, I won't kick the puppy. Let's clean all this up. Making sure Dr. Chase's comments were well, and we need to include those, and our attorney, Mr. Lou Raynon, who has given us insight as to what is required, and that he will stand forth and want those things in order to protect the township in any type of legal atmosphere that we might find ourselves in. We don't want to be caught short, and he's going to make sure we're not caught short. So we're going to do the motion as follows. The location for the memorial will be on Route 27 and Cordeloo Lane. The council, we need to approve the concept plan. No, the conceptual.
The concept.
The concept, okay, the concept. The engineer and masonry contractor are to meet with the township engineer and planner as soon as the township safety requirements based on the concept and based on the input from the engineer and the planner, as I said, and the cost estimate before we begin the construction process. It has to come back and for us to approve that final plan, okay? The part about the paperwork that is required for Mr. Lou Raynon to hold the township harmless from any aspect must be executed and delivered to him and executed before this process even begins. That's it.
So that's, the motioner has changed his motion. Does the
I
second
second it.
agree? Okay, so we have a new motion. Any other comments? Okay, time for my comments. So I would like, you know, my concerns always about this have been, well, some of my concerns have been legal, which we've seemed to have discussed, putting the township in legal jeopardy, and also financial. You recall when this came up, I'm reminded it was in March. The initial idea came up, and I was the one who asked the question and discovered that this would have cost, if we had moved at that time, this would have cost the town $100,000. Disclosing that made council step back a bit and made the fundraisers step forward a bit and changed that fundraising to include the maintenance. So include the construction. So I'm still concerned about financial. I would like an eventual resolution to define exactly the financial obligations of the town, and what I want is for those financial obligations to be zero. I don't want the town involved with maintenance. Now, you know, then this is going to be a headache for you to draft. I'm not worried about people mowing the lawn around the edge. We maintain parks all over the place. I'm not concerned if, you know, one of the cobblestones is loose and someone goes there and taps it down. And I'm not concerned in the construction if one of our trucks delivers the donated gravel to the site for the parking lot. You know, these are the kinds of things that expedite something, make it easier, and is pennies on the dollar. I was told at least at one point the gazebo costs the town $1,320. I don't know if that's changed since then. It's a $100,000 gazebo. that's a pretty good investment for a $100,000 gazebo. So I'm not nickeling and dime, but we're talking about a television there in an outdoor enclosure with a spare television in case it breaks and cameras. Maintenance of that could get very complicated and expensive. So I would like that the township is not responsible for that, that the community foundation, which I guess is receiving the funds, would that be appropriate that they would be responsible for the financial?
They certainly could be.
They could be, would be responsible for that. So there might have to be ongoing fundraising every year, maybe $5,000, whatever is raised in order to do that. But I would like those kind of maintenance items to be covered. So would, Mr. Wright, would you accept that in the motion?
One quick question.
Yes, sir.
Does the gazebo do the same thing?
I'm happy to add that to the gazebo.
So right now, the gazebo presently doesn't do that.
The gazebo doesn't have a television. The gazebo is not as complicated as a project as this.
You're absolutely correct. Does the gazebo have that?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. Now, before we throw that into our little mix here and start, doing other things, you put the gazebo first, that is what is required for them. And when we come back to with Mr. Reynon at the next meeting, we can vote on that. But as it stands now presently, no. Only because I don't want to do one thing for one and then not do it for the other. And we try to go back and reinvent the wheel. I'm not going to do that.
Mr. Mayor, can I
Yes,
jump in
ma'am.
here, please?
Yes, ma'am.
So since we do not have a concept plan that includes within that plan a television and some of the things we're talking about, is it somewhat premature to be talking about a television when we haven't approved the concept plan yet?
We're
That's
approving.
exactly why I didn't want the word plan in the resolution.
So the plan may not, the concept plan may not, and when it gets right down to it, may not include a television. Because right now, the concept
does it?
plan is not approved because we don't have a concept plan.
Does it include a television? Can anyone answer
So,
whether it
yes,
includes
Mayor?
a television?
Mayor, my understanding, it's not my design, but by conversations and the review the other night, I believe there is the two televisions which are encased. So this may, just throwing this idea out, because what I'm hearing is people, just like the gazebo, if there's some leaf blowing or grass cutting or that kind of thing, it's done as we maintain in simple ways our properties. So how about this, to keep it simple? All electronics or structural maintenance for our gazebo or for this project will be the responsibility of the two bodies, nonprofit bodies, that basically it ran through and created them. And it could be a joint resolution in September, and it sounds like it's fair, and it will deal with what seems to be the last two pieces of the puzzle here. And the conceptual plan is exactly that, conceptual. If that resolution comes forward and we agree to it, then any of the electronics which seem to be the issue or major structural repairs, which, the bricks, I don't know, someday they may. But to not move forward with the general plan and location based on the criteria and the stipulations Councilman Wright laid out, I'm not understanding, why, if we're all dedicated to a fair resolution that protects both structures, the town from having to spend money or any real kind of money on either structure. So is that acceptable?
So there's a significant difference between the gazebo, and I'm always perplexed by the comparison of the gazebo to this. I think the reason, never mind. the comparison of the gazebo to this, as I understand it, the gazebo is a gift to the town. The town owns the gazebo.
We will, once it's a gift to us. It hasn't been given to us yet.
I understand that we will not own this memorial, that it is not the township's memorial. The township is donating land for a memorial that we will not own. Am I wrong? Or is this now a township memorial?
Wait, so will we be painting and handling the electronics and whatnot at a gazebo going forward?
Wait a minute, I've asked a question. Is this a township memorial, or are we donating land?
The Township Memorial.
That changes, does that change things, Mr. Attorney?
Well, for me, it's just a donation to the township. I assumed it was the same as so I assumed that that's what it was going to be.
So now this is a township memorial?
I would assume so, sure.
Well, if it's
On our
donated to the
property.
township, it would be ours.
Yeah,
We
they're
own
gonna
it.
donate it to
I thought they were donating it to the community foundation.
They are, and then the community foundation, I'm assuming, is donating. Right.
Well, my point is that we ought to know what we're getting into, particularly with respect to these maintenance issues, as well as other site plan issues. And, we might, I think it should be a township-owned memorial. I think that's what the public expects. But I think that we need to know what commitments we're making towards maintenance if we do accept it, and that may affect aspects of the plan.
So
Councilwoman
let me
Best,
just be blunt here.
Kimberly Francois.
So this concept plan has to be vetted, and as far as I'm concerned, it's not cast in stone. I don't think I'll agree to having a television on this site, because it's going to induce vandalism, it's going to require lighting, electricity. What I had talked about before was the scope creep on this project. We started off with one thing, now we're getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and now we're here talking about maintenance costs because the scope is getting so big, we have to be concerned about how we're going to maintain it, how we're going to prevent vandalism. A peace and nonviolent memorial should be a memorial. It doesn't have to have all the bells and whistles on it. I think people will get what they need to get out of the memorial based on having a memorial. So as far as the concept plan, that's not been vetted, and I don't think we need to sit here all night and keep going back and forth on televisions, because I'm not going to approve that. I don't think we need that.
Mr. Mayor, can I just add something here? Just finishing this up, because I do have just one thought on this.
I don't know that it will finish it up, but you may give
Right, well, I don't know that it'll finish it up, but I have one thought. This will be in a township park. That's parkland, it's township parkland. And so, I noticed some things like lighting mentioned and things like that, so, Mr. Prasad, this Nigerian Engineering is going to develop a detailed site plan for this, a construction plan for this memorial?
Exactly.
And that concept, that site plan will be reviewed by the Township Engineering Department, the Public Works Department, and myself and others. And so that will then come back to council, and I'm sitting here and I'm listening to things, and staff will have input as to what we can and can't maintain in a public park. That's number one. And number two, and I don't know how many of you recall this or are aware of it, we do have a Veterans Memorial out in front. That's a large memorial out in the front of our building here. And there is a trust fund for maintenance of that. That was money raised by the sale of pavers. We continue to raise money every once in a while. We still sell one. There's about $9,000 in there. When Mr. LaCourt asks for new flags for the Memorial Day service, we buy the new flags from there. That very easily could be established for this memorial, like is established for the Veterans Memorial, for those expenses that periodically pop up when something needs to be fixed, a stone needs to be set, or what have you. My suggestion to those who are involved in the fundraising efforts for this is that you don't stop now, that you raise some money that can be placed in trust for the township to use to make repairs when necessary. And I don't think that it needs to be a tremendous amount of money. It's just a general wear and tear on things, that sometimes a light fixture needs to be replaced or what have you, and that's what you have the money in the trust for. And I think that you don't need to belabor that anymore. And you also just need to, and I haven't said anything yet, but you have a staff that does this on a daily basis. This is what you pay all of us to do. Let us do our job, and we'll do our job, and we will review the site plan and ensure that everything is done accordingly. But once that site plan is developed, and that's the next step in the process if you do what you're going to, I believe, do tonight. And that's all I have to say.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to call the question.
Excuse me. The manager just suggested a change in the motion.
Oh, he did.
I don't know that I suggested that you change the motion. I just simply said that these things can be done, and once the site plan is developed, your resolution to adopt the site plan can include all of those other things that we talk about here.
So this
I would also like to finish my statements, since everyone has spoken more than once. The other thing is the openness issue that was discussed. So I understand we're going to come back with a resolution. You'll be writing a resolution.
And 2 agreements, I believe.
Okay, and those will be on the agenda. Mr. Schmidt was wrong. This was not on the agenda. The discussion of this project is not on the agenda. It came up during council comments. So any further, council reports, thank you. Any further discussion or votes that are going to be on this, I wish that they will be on the agenda, and there will be written material available to the public beforehand. This is a peace and nonviolence memorial. This is a harmony memorial. It should be done in the most openness. If it can't be done in an open manner, then something is wrong. So I just think it needs to be, we need to bend over backwards to be open. When the marijuana discussion came up, and we were thinking about putting it on there, I insisted, and the attorney will bear me out, I wanted a resolution written at least a week in advance so that I could put it up on Facebook, so it could go up on the township website, et cetera, so that people would know and people could come here and comment one way or the other on it. I think we need to go out of our way to be open on this. And then if it passes, then we get to say we did it in an open way. The public had fair opportunity to comment on it. We listened to those comments and we acted on it. That is the only way I know how to do government properly. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, call for the question.
I have a motion to call for the question. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other comments? Madam Clerk.
Councilman Chase.
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois.
Yes.
Councilman Galtieri.
Yes.
Mayor Kramer.
Yes.
Councilman Oni Jaka.
Yes.
Councilman Prasad.
Yes.
Councilman Vasanella.
Yes.
Councilman Wright.
Councilman Vasanella, do you have any further comments in your council comments?
No.
Councilman Prasad, your council comments. Good answer, by the way, Mr. Vasanella.
I know, except I just have one thing.
Really?
One thing I have to report on, otherwise I'll be drummed out of the HRC committee meeting. There's a junior commissioner, Julian Hector, that they have recommended that the council appoint to the HRC. And this is they've interviewed him, this is a recommendation from the school counselors, etc. So I don't think we really appoint them. They select them, and
Yeah, you guys don't appoint them, they just,
Okay.
they select them.
so
and-
that's just for your information only then. That he has been selected by the HRC chairman and management or top committee, and they have selected him. So he's a good addition, and I just.
Thank you. Councilman Chase.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, none of the council committees that I sat on have met in the last month, so there's nothing to report there. A couple of things to report. One is that just at the beginning of the meeting, the manager informed me that the township has received certified local government status. And this has to do with the role of the Historic Preservation Committee, and I can see that Mr. LaCourte and a few others know what this means. It means, for instance, that if the state proposes to do something within our historic zones, that our Historic Preservation Committee is able to tell the state what it may or may not do. And certain things will be handled by our Historic Preservation Commission rather than having to go to the state office, which moves exceedingly slowly. It has taken at least 5 years for us to achieve the 10, says Mr. LaCourte. It's certainly from before I became council liaison to the Historic Preservation Committee, I know. So, and it's because we would send something to the state Historic Preservation Office, and we'd wait a year, and they'd come back and say, yeah, that's okay, but we want you to do this. And we'd do that, you know, just as fast as we could, within 2 weeks at least, and send it back, and we'd wait another year. And they'd be saying, well, your CVs of your members are not up to date. Well, that's because they took so long. So I'm so happy that this has been done. Second thing I'm happy is that I can't say that I've actually seen the work being done, but that the Little Rocky Hill Water Main relining project, I believe, is underway. It was announced to start last night, and the actual excavation will begin in perhaps 2 weeks. In fact, I asked the manager, will we have a groundbreaking that I can attend?
So Mr. Houck informed me today that he has the shovel chromed for you, and he will schedule the moment that you may plunge it into the earth and start the first hole of the project. He'll let you know the date, and it'll be an evening appointment since construction starts at 8.
Yeah,
I will remind.
I can bring my own
Shovel?
stone plate.
You have one of those?
I have.
Gentlemen, I will remind council that it's 10 o'clock at night. Let's not be discussing shovels. Thank
I
you
have
very
two
much.
from when my father was
That's
chair of the
wonderful.
board of the Massachusetts Community College Commission, and they would have a
Dr.
groundbreaking,
Chase,
he'd
do you
get
have
a shovel.
anything else?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chase, and I look forward to seeing your shovels. Councilman Wright.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless you, Councilman Wright. And I would just like to recognize our dignitaries in the office, Republican Chair Bob LaCourte, BOE President Nancy LaCourte, former BOE President just left, Ava Naj, and Mr. Metler, forgive me because I moved into the township only 20 years ago. Were you mayor at one point? Twice.
I was going to say more than 1 point.
Twice Mayor Robert Metler, and Mayor of, and current and always Mayor of East Millstone, Mr. Metler. And that's all my comments. Mr. Manager, please be brief.
I have many, many things to discuss.
I have no
Actually, I have
doubt.
one. And this is relevant to all of those with city water south of Skillman's Lane. The water main that was severed last week, I guess it was now, on Amwell Road by Van Cleef, 42-inch water main, which we were able to bypass while the repairs were made, has been fixed, and I was informed tonight while we were here that the bacteria tests came back negative, and that line will be charged tomorrow morning, and we'll be back in business with normal operations in our water utility system, rather than having to go on bypass and other interconnects, which we've been since the break took place about a week and a half ago. So we're back in business on that, and that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
God bless you. We've already had council discussion on cannabis. Approval of the minutes, and now the meeting begins. I present the following minutes for approval to Township Council. The Township Council work session, regular meeting of February 13th, 2018 at 7 p.m. and also of July 10th, 2018 at 7 p.m. And Councilwoman Francois' cell phone going off. I present those minutes. An executive session, July 10th, 2018. It's always good to make her laugh. Do we have a motion on the
Motion
minutes?
to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion or changes on the minutes? No discussion or changes, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois?
Yes.
Councilman Galtieri?
Yes.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Oni Chaka?
Yes.
Councilman Prasad?
Yes.
Councilman Vasanella? Councilman Wright?
Warrants in the amount of $36,809,037.17. That's a lot of warrant. August 14th, 2018 are presented to the Township Council for payment. Do I have a motion to pay our bills?
Motioned.
And a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion, questions? No. Madam Clerk?
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois?
Yes.
Councilman Galtieri?
Yes.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Oni Chaka?
Yes.
Councilman Prasad?
Yes.
Councilman Vasanella? Councilman Wright?
Ordinance on introduction and first readings, because we have no second readings. 4239-18, an ordinance to amend the municipal code of Chapter 115, dogs and other animals of the Township of Franklin, County of Somerset. Mr. Wright, where are you going? You're out of order. Of the Township of Franklin, County of Somerset, State of New Jersey, with the amendment of Article 2, Dogs and Cats, Section 115-8, licensing required, fees, terms, non-transferable, subsection A, dogs, reduced license fees for dogs from, here's the key point, reduced license fees from dogs from $15 to $14.18. Foregoing ordinance.
80 cents.
80 cents, thank you. The foregoing ordinance is presented to the Township Council for adoption and first reading, posting, publication in accordance with law, and public hearing and final adoption on Thursday, September 13th, 2018, at 7 p.m. at the Municipal Complex. Do I have a motion?
Motion for introduction.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. So I tried to make it worse. The whole reason why we're reducing this fee and going through that long reading by 20 cents is that because there is a state fee added on top of it, this now makes the entire fee $16, and therefore we do not have to make change because it used to be $16.20. Well, this will cost the town about $500 in revenue, saving taxpayers $500 in revenue. It will save more money in the time of staff to go get change and make sure there's change and protect the change and put it in the safe, et cetera. So it is really a cost-saving and nuisance benefit. And it'll move the lines at the clerk's window a little faster. Do we have any other discussion items? Discussion on the item. Do I have a motion to?
You did already.
We did, yes. Madam Clerk?
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois?
Yes.
Councilman Galtieri?
Yes.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Oni Jaka?
Yes.
And that's it.
People
all
are,
that's
people are leaving. Okay, ordinance 40-18, authorizing vacation and acceptance of a water line easement in connection with the HSRE-EB Somerset LLC and Engel Berman QC at Somerset LLC Block 468.01, parts of lots 26.01 and 26.03. The foregoing ordinance is presented to Township Council for adoption on first reading, posting publication in accordance with the law and public hearing, and final adoption on Thursday, September 13th, 2018, at 7 p.m. at the Municipal Complex. Do I have a motion?
Motion for introduction.
Second, please.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. So basically, we need an order, an easement to put in a water line at 1830 Easton Avenue, and because we are the town and we are getting an easement, you need an ordinance to do it. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Do you have more to add, Mr.? No? Okay. Any other discussion?
All I had to add was that it's actually a vacation and an acceptance. So there was one there, we're getting rid of that one, and we're replacing it with a new one. It's a combo.
That's great. I could
ordinance.
use a vacation. And any other discussion? Madam Clerk?
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois?
Yes.
Councilman Galtieri?
Yes.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Oni Jaka?
Yes.
Councilman Prasad?
Yes.
Ordinance 4241-18 and 4242-18 are connected ordinances. They're about a purchase of a piece of land. An ordinance to acquire by purchase or condemnation certain lands within the Township of Franklin, Somerset County of Township of Franklin, Somerset County, for municipal purposes in the Township of Franklin pursuant to NJSA 40A:12-13, subparagraph A, block 417.01, lots 15.02, 5.28 acres on Wilson Road. The foregoing ordinance is presented to the Township Council for adoption on first reading, posting, publication in accordance with the law and public hearing, and final adoption on Thursday, September 13th, 2018, at 7 p.m. at the Municipal Complex. I'm sorry, do we have a motion?
Motion to introduce.
Second.
Moved and seconded. For discussion, Mr. Attorney, someone came up and spoke about this. I think it's appropriate that you say something.
Well, the only thing that I could say is that this is a piece of property that was, I guess the taxes were not paid going back to 2009.
Correct.
The tax lien was purchased by somebody, so there's the property owner that we're buying it from is actually the person who paid the taxes and then got title to the property. It's a fairly long process to do that. Requires, I'm going to say, on the neighborhood of 50 notices to the property owner about the unpaid taxes, all the time to redeem, the time to stop the judgment, which is about 2 years after the actual foreclosure has all passed, and we've negotiated a purchase price. It's adjacent to a purchase of the property. It's adjacent to other township open space.
Correct.
And we recommend the township moving forward with it.
Any other discussion? So I have a little bit of discussion. I want to be extremely clear about this. We are purchasing this land with township money. This is not open space money. This is township money. Seeing no other discussion, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Chase?
I'm sensitive to Mr. Godek's appeal. On the other hand, as our attorney said.
Mr. Chase, so you cannot have, let's go back to discussion, and you can discuss this, and we'll call the roll again. But you You can't make a speech during the vote.
Well, I'll pass then.
If you'd like to say what you want to say, I'm returning it back to discussion, so you can say what you want to say, and then you can vote. Would you like to do that? The whole purpose for why you can't make a speech when you're voting is because the person who votes first then has more sway over than the person who votes last. So it's kind of not fair to the people last in there. But if you want to, as part of the discussion item, say something, and then, as I did with the marijuana vote, I made my little speech and said how I was going to vote. Would you like to do it that way, or you just want to pass?
I think I'll just vote no.
Okay. Continue, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Francois.
Yes.
Councilman Galtieri.
Yes.
Mayor Kramer.
Yes.
Councilman Oni Jaka.
Yes.
Councilman Prasad.
Yes.
Okay, and then a accompanying ordinance, capital ordinance providing for the payment of the purchase price of real property in and by the Township of Franklin in the County of Somerset, State of New Jersey, the Township appropriating $88,000 therefore to pay the cost thereof, Wilson Road Property Block 417.01, lots 15.02. The foregoing ordinance is presented to the Township Council for adoption on first reading, posting, publication in accordance with law, and public hearing and final adoption on Thursday, September 13th, 2018, at 7 p.m. at the Municipal Complex. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. So, just for the edification of the audience, Mr. Attorney, why do we essentially have the ordinance twice? Why is that?
Well, there's an ordinance authorizing the purchase, and then there's a separate capital ordinance, which is the appropriation of the funds to purchase it.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I think you might want to also say that there will be a public hearing on this ordinance.
Correct.
Second reading.
Did I not say that? I thought I
Oh,
did.
maybe you did.
The foregoing ordinance is
did.
presented in accordance
He
with.
did.
Okay,
I did.
maybe I wasn't listening.
I did
On
something right.
September 13th.
I did
On
something right.
September 13th, okay.
Look at me.
You said that, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it's such boilerplate that you didn't really realize you'd done it.
I thought I had done it, but I've read it so many times it
Yeah,
fogs
yeah,
into
I
my little brain.
probably wasn't
So
listening.
any other discussion? Councilwoman Francois, would you like
No.
to play your cell phone again? Or no? Okay.
Maybe that's why I
Seeing no
wasn't listening.
discussion, Madam Clerk?
Councilman Chase.
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois.
Yes.
Councilman Galtieri.
Yes.
Mayor Kramer.
Yes.
Councilman Oni Jaka.
Yes.
Councilman Prasad.
Yes.
We are now on to the most dangerous portion of the council agenda. That is the consent agenda. Items A through AR, that's
44.
44 items, as listed on the consent agenda portion of this meeting, are presented to the Township Council for adoption. Do I have a motion?
So
on
moved.
items? And a
Second.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone like to point out any particular items on here? Chase, didn't you want to point?
Well,
You don't have to say the number, you can just say.
Q 18318, we're buying electric cars
Yay.
for our, and, you know, cutting down on our CO2 emissions. We're buying them for, in the first instance at least, for our building inspectors. Since the construction code department raises more money than its basic expenses, we have the money in that budget to spend, and if we don't spend it, the state will take it back.
Okay. Anyone else? Well, I have AK, the most important item on the entire agenda. Issuance of a special event permit, Franklin Foodback Music and Crafts Festival, Canal Fest, will be on October 13th, 2018, from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. in the village of East Millstone.
5 p.m. is what it says.
Is it? Oh.
People who live in glass houses. Just saying.
I'm a doctor, I'm on call,
Okay.
and Bob LaCourte was
He has a
calling
good
me.
excuse.
You just,
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
okay. Mr. Mayor, no, I'm not pulling anything.
it's time to go home.
I would just like to clarify, because I got caught up on this as well, and because it was one of my first times. Can we just quickly go Z and AA, which is the Buffer Drive area, and Apgar, to clarify that it's multiple roads within these?
That's why it says area, Councilman. Absolutely correct. It's not just that street, but it's many others, and they have to be grouped together for bid purposes. It would be very impractical to bid one of them at a time.
Thank you.
You're
Except for
welcome.
Veronica, which was by itself. But, yes, so these were, again, this is to move our paving project along, so hopefully, I believe the schedule is within the next, given if we approve this, this should be within the next 2 months, hopefully.
These will be done in the fall.
Any other
Thank you.
discussion on the consent agenda? Madam Clerk?
Councilman Chase,
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois,
Yes.
Councilman Galtieri,
Yes.
Mayor Kramer,
Yes.
Councilman Oni Jaka,
Yes.
Councilman Prasad.
Yes.
We have no resolutions to be voted on separately. They're old business. Any nominations or committee vacancies? Hearing none. There is no executive session. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Be well, Franklin. We are adjourned.